Chapter 575. But before he could finish his thoughts, Emo Jingfang's fist had already landed on his head. Seeing how violent Emo Jingfang was, Yi Hao did not dare to provoke her. He immediately ran away. But his intentions were instantly detected by Emo Jingfang, and she coldly shouted, "Stop right there!" Yi Hao's body staggered, and he could only awkwardly stop. Looking at Emo Jingfang, who had her hands on her waist, he awkwardly smiled. "What a coincidence, we meet again. Here, I'll return this token to you." Yi Hao pulled the token from his waist, and was about to return it to Emo Jingfang. Emo Jingfang did not act pretentious as she directly took the token and looked at Yi Hao with sparkling eyes. Being sized up by Emo Jingfang, Yi Hao's hair stood on end, and he subconsciously tightened his legs. Seeing the blood on Wang Guanxiong's crotch, Yi Hao could not help but shiver. "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." Yi Hao did not wait for Emo Jingfang's reply and turned to leave. "If you don't want to get beaten up, then obediently stand there." Before he could turn around, Emo Jingfang's figure had already appeared. Seeing Emo Jingfang's clenched fist, Yi Hao could not help but swallow his saliva. This woman, she couldn't be thinking of revenge, right? Although he was the one who took her first time, he could not be blamed for it. Furthermore, didn't she enjoy it? She even moaned happily. Why did she suddenly turn her back on him? Yi Hao finally understood that a woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. At this moment, he was completely unable to see through what Emo Jingfang was thinking in her heart. He could not hit her. No matter what, she was the woman he slept with. How could he hit Emo Jingfang? And most importantly, he could not beat her. Yi Hao had never felt so sullen before. Seeing Yi Hao's sullen look, Emo Jingfang's expression was cold, but she was now smiling like a flower. "Little guy, you also have a day like this." Suddenly, Emo Jingfang thought of something important, and looked at Yi Hao with a serious expression. "You seem to know a lot about herbs?" Seeing the anticipation in Emo Jingfang's eyes, although he didn't understand what Emo Jingfang meant, he still nodded his head. "I know a little." "Then do you know about the purple soul heavenly grass?" Emo Jingfang looked at Yi Hao in anticipation, afraid that Yi Hao would say that he didn't know. "Purple soul divine grass, isn't that used to treat souls?" Hearing Emo Jingfang's question, Yi Hao replied, "So you do know. Then do you know where the purple soul heavenly grass grows?" Hearing Yi Hao reveal the use of the purple soul heavenly grass, Emo Jingfang nervously asked. One had to know that this purple soul divine grass was something that she found a famous alchemist and inquired before finding out. But that alchemist did not know where this purple soul divine grass was. He only said that this thing existed in legends. However, she did not give up because it was related to her grandfather's life. Ever since she was young, her grandfather had doted on her the most. Furthermore, without his grandfather's suppression, the entire Mo family had already started to shake. Therefore, whether it was for her grandfather or for the entire Mo family, she had to find the purple soul heavenly grass. Originally, she did not have much hope, but she did not want to let go of a trace of opportunity, so she casually asked Yi Hao. But who knew that Yi Hao actually knew the use of the purple soul heavenly grass, which meant that Yi Hao had also heard of the purple soul heavenly grass. The purple soul heavenly grass usually grows in dense martial Tao energy and is also very dark because the growth and nurturing of the purple soul heavenly grass requires a large amount of souls. Yi Hao casually said because this was not difficult for him at all. Because every time he broke through a rank as an alchemist, the system would give him a large amount of information about herbs. It was not an exaggeration to say that Yi Hao was a moving spiritual herb library in the 10,000 countries continent. Other than a few top-grade spiritual herbs and poisonous herbs that he did not know, there was no herb in the 10,000 countries continent that he did not know. "Can you help me find the purple soul heavenly grass?" Mo Jingfang did not expect that Yi Hao would actually know the growing environment of the purple soul heavenly grass. Her tone couldn't help but become warm as she asked with a trace of pleading. Seeing Emo Jingfang's pleading face, Yi Hao also knew that the purple soul heavenly grass should be of great use to Emo Jingfang. And he had taken Emo Jingfang's first time, so he was not the kind of person who would not recognize people after putting on his pants. Since Emo Jingfang was asking for his help, he naturally couldn't refuse. Ding dong, congratulations on obtaining the mission. Help Emo Jingfang obtain the purple soul heavenly grass. Reward. Level 3 Reward. Peak Martial God Elixir, Emo Jingfang's favorability plus 80. Just at this moment, the system's voice rang out. Finally, the mission came. Hearing the system's notification, Yi Hao thought happily in his heart. And favorability represented the relationship between the two. If Emo Jingfang's favorability towards him increased by 80, there was a high chance that Emo Jingfang would fall in love with him or treat him as family. But in Yi Hao's view, the possibility of the former was higher. And he also hoped that it would be the former. After all, Emo Jingfang was definitely a great beauty, so how could Yi Hao not want her in his heart? Even if it was to obtain Emo Jingfang's favorability, he would accept this mission. As for Guo Zhenyu and the others' poison, as long as Wang Guanxiong died, it would naturally be removed. So Yi Hao didn't have to worry about it. Let's go, Yi Hao said to Emo Jingfang as he turned around and kept all the ancient mutated beasts, Gui Yifan and Zhao Yun. You're really going to help me? Emo Jingfang was deeply surprised that Yi Hao agreed so quickly. Are you going or not? If not, I'm leaving. Go, go, go. Seeing Yi Hao start to leave, Emo Jingfang immediately chased after him. Looking at Yi Hao's back, Emo Jingfang felt complicated. She originally thought that the two of them wouldn't have anything to do with each other, but she didn't expect that they would meet again. Moreover, she even asked Yi Hao for help. Moreover, in her mind, scenes of her and Yi Hao would occasionally flash by, causing her to feel shy. Because of the existence of the heavenly Yin spirit, Yi Hao was very sensitive towards dark areas. After careful analysis, he quickly found a general direction and flew over with Emo Jingfang. Are you sure that's the dark area? Emo Jingfang looked in front and asked coldly. It wasn't any different from the other directions. She didn't know if this was the situation where the heavenly Yin spirit was asleep, but Yi Hao could only roughly identify it. If the heavenly Yin spirit was in an awakened state, it would be able to instantly find the darkest area. Yi Hao had been carefully identifying the direction, so he didn't bother with Emo Jingfang. On the other hand, Emo Jingfang angrily stomped her feet. This lady took the initiative to talk to you, and you actually dare to ignore me? Seeing that you helped me, I won't bicker with you. Chapter 576. Hearing Yi Hao's words, Emo Jingfang indeed felt that the surrounding temperature had dropped by quite a bit. But smelling the rotten smell in the air, she couldn't help but wrinkle her cute nose. Are you sure it's here? Looking at the surrounding environment, Emo Jingfang's face was filled with suspicion. How could the legendary purple spirit heavenly grass appear in a place like this? If it wasn't for Yi Hao's face of restraint, Emo Jingfang would really suspect that Yi Hao was playing with her. This is only the edge. If we walk to the center, the environment will become even worse. It's too late to regret now, Yi Hao said, seeing Emo Jingfang wrinkling her nose and disgusted with the surrounding environment. So what if it's 10,000 times worse? Hearing Yi Hao's words, Emo Jingfang was not convinced. Her expression returned to normal, and she took the lead to walk past Yi Hao. Looks like that person is very important to her. Seeing Emo Jingfang's determination, Yi Hao analyzed. Because with one look, he could tell that Emo Jingfang was definitely someone from a big power and definitely had never come into contact with this kind of environment. Emo Jingfang's eyes were filled with disgust. It was obvious that she was not used to this kind of environment. But Emo Jingfang was actually able to overcome it. This was worthy of praise. The deeper Yi Hao and Emo Jingfang walked, the darker the surroundings became. At the same time, the rotten smell became even stronger. Tsk tisk, suddenly, a horrifying sound could be heard. Just a small malicious spirit, how dare you be so rash? Looking at the malicious spirit that was attacking him, Yi Hao directly threw out a punch. The malicious spirit let out a sinister cry and instantly turned into nothingness. A small malicious spirit could not stop the two of them. Yi Hao and Mo Jingfang continued to walk deeper. Along the way they met more and more malicious spirits, and they were also getting stronger. But all of them were destroyed by Yi Hao's punch. Purple spirit grass. Yi Hao suddenly saw a group of purple grass growing on a swamp. His face revealed a trace of joy. What's purple clarity grass? Seeing Yi Hao's joyous expression, Mo Jingfang was confused. Seeing Mo Jingfang's thirst for knowledge, Yi Hao couldn't help but tease, "If you want to know, give me a kiss." Kaba, kaba. Suddenly, Mo Jingfang clenched her fists and smiled at Yi Hao. "Are you sure?" He didn't know why, but Yi Hao felt that Mo Jingfang's smile was a little scary, and he thought of her violent side. Yi Hao waved his hand awkwardly and said, "I was just joking." "Then hurry up and say it." Seeing Yi Hao's awkward expression, Mo Jingfang held back her laughter and asked coldly. Yi Hao curled his lips and explained, "Purple bright grass is a useless grass. It has no medicinal value at all." Before Yi Hao could finish, Mo Jingfang rolled her eyes at Yi Hao. "If it has no medicinal value, then why are you making a fuss about it?" Mo Jingfang thought that Yi Hao was playing with her again, but Yi Hao's following words made her smile completely. Although purple bright grass is useless, it and purple spirit heavenly grass accompany each other. As long as there's purple bright grass, there will definitely be purple spirit heavenly grass. Then let's hurry up and find it. The purple spirit heavenly grass should be nearby. Hearing Yi Hao's words, Mo Jingfang was so excited that she almost jumped up. Her hard work finally didn't go to waste. As long as the purple spirit heavenly grass really existed, then her grandfather and the entire Mo family could be saved. Just when Mo Jingfang was about to search excitedly, she was grabbed by Yi Hao. Seeing Yi Hao's serious expression, Mo Jingfang frowned and asked, "What's wrong?" "The purple spirit heavenly grass is a rare treasure. It can revive a martial god expert. At the same time, it also has a strong effect on other creatures. There must be a strong creature guarding this area," Yi Hao said cautiously. "Who cares what creature it is? If it dares to block this lady, then I'll kill it." Mo Jingfang clenched her fist and said, "All right." Thinking of Mo Jingfang's terrifying battle strength, Yi Hao felt that there shouldn't be any danger and relaxed. "That's the purple spirit heavenly grass?" Suddenly, Mo Jingfang let out an excited cry. Yi Hao followed Mo Jingfang's gaze and looked over. In the middle of the swamp, there was actually a small lake. But the strange thing was that the lake water was actually black. And in the middle of the lake, there was a herb that looked like a lotus flower. It was emitting a seven-colored radiance. It was the purple spirit heavenly grass. In such an environment, looking at the state of the purple spirit heavenly grass, it was abnormally shocking. "Lord, I feel a familiar aura," the giant dragon in the dragon prison lake suddenly said. "Why is there someone you know here?" Hearing the giant dragon's words, Yi Hao asked jokingly. One must know that there wasn't a single person around, but there were many malicious spirits. "Lord, do you still remember that I was injured by someone? I felt that person's aura," the giant dragon said with a strange expression. "What? Such a coincidence?" Yi Hao was also surprised. He didn't expect to meet the giant dragon's enemy in such a place. No matter what, the giant dragon was following him. Since it was the giant dragon's enemy, then it was naturally his enemy. As the giant dragon's master, he naturally had to take revenge for the giant dragon. But he was already so strong in the past. I reckon that he can definitely reach the peak of the martial god realm now, the giant dragon said with a lonely and worried face. Originally, it wanted to take revenge personally, but its strength had just recovered. and the other party had been cultivating outside for so long. He was definitely much stronger than it. Be careful. Just when Yi Hao was still communicating with the giant dragon, Mo Jingfang couldn't control herself and flew towards the purple soul heavenly grass. Seeing Mo Jingfang being so rash, Yi Hao immediately shouted out. But Mo Jingfang ignored him. The purple soul heavenly grass was already within her reach. How could she give it up? Mo Jingfang grabbed the purple soul heavenly grass and saw that the lake was still calm, without any protectors. Mo Jingfang couldn't help but look at Yi Hao proudly. At the same time, she raised the purple soul heavenly grass in her hand, as if showing off to Yi Hao. Seeing that Mo Jingfang was safe and sound, Yi Hao couldn't help but frown. Could it be that he worried too much? Ding dong, congratulations to host for helping Mo Jingfang obtain the purple soul heavenly grass. Congratulations to host for leveling up by 3 levels. Current level, 2nd level Martial Saint. Ding dong, congratulations to host for increasing Mo Jingfang's favorability by 80. Ding dong, congratulations to host for obtaining the peak of the Martial God Pill. A notification sounded out in his mind. Seeing that Mo Jingfang was safe and sound, Yi Hao couldn't help but frown. Could it be that he worried too much? Just as he was about to relax, a tiny ripple appeared on the surface of the Black Lake. Although the ripple was small, the lake was even quieter. Chapter 577. Rumble. Suddenly, the Black Lake water started to boil. Black waves shot towards the shore and the sound of corrosion could be heard. At this moment, a pitch-black claw reached out from the lake. That's a skeleton? Yi Hao looked at the huge claw. Although it was pitch-black, he could see that there was no flesh and blood. It was just a skeleton. Yi Fun, save him. Yi Hao panicked and quickly summoned Gui Yifan. Gui Yifan did not dare to be careless and attacked the skeleton's huge claw. Ha! Mo Jingfang also kept the purple soul heavenly grass and a black soft sword appeared in her hand. She also attacked the skeleton. In front of the huge claw, Mo Jingfang was not even comparable to a finger of the huge claw. Boom! Mo Jingfang's soft sword hit the huge skeleton claw. Instantly, some fragments flew out. However, it did not affect the huge claw at all. Boom! At this moment, Gui Yifan's attack also landed on the huge claw. Instantly, a finger of the huge claw was shattered. However, it did not affect the huge claw's attack. At this moment, the lake's surface changed again. Another huge claw reached out from the lake. What is this thing? Seeing that the skeleton was so powerful, Yi Hao asked in confusion. One must know that 2 peak martial god realm experts were unable to defeat a skeleton. Little dragon, this elixir is for you. Whether you can take revenge or not is up to you. Yi Hao took out the peak martial god realm elixir and handed it to the huge dragon. Thank you, Lord. The huge dragon's eyes were filled with gratitude. He did not hesitate and directly ate the elixir. Roar! The huge dragon roared loudly. All the ferocious ghosts and beasts within a radius of 10 li all prostrated themselves on the ground. As for the skeleton in the lake, its body suddenly stiffened. Cloder, you are a disgrace to your King Kong clan. You actually turned into an undead. The huge dragon mocked. Wu, a defeated opponent actually did not die. How dare you talk about this king? At this moment, the skeleton in the lake finally revealed its entire appearance. It was a huge skeleton that was nearly 500 meters tall. Its upper body was black. However, the strange thing was that its lower body was not a skeleton. It was slightly rotten. However, it wasn't hard to tell from the black hair that it was an orangutan's leg. What kind of monster is this? Seeing the giant skeleton, Yi Hao resisted the urge to vomit. I've destroyed my flesh to refine my bones. Even a peak martial god realm expert won't be able to harm me. The sound of metal rubbing against each other came out from the giant skeleton's mouth. Master, this skeleton is indeed strange. Gui Yifan shouted anxiously. This was because even though his all-out attack could cause a small crack on the giant skeleton, it was completely useless against a giant skeleton that was hundreds of meters tall. I'm sorry I've dragged you guys down. I want to ask for your help. Emo Jingfang's voice rang out at the same time. If it wasn't for her seeing the purple soul divine grass and being impulsive, she might not have fallen into such a dangerous situation. Right now, she only wanted to stall the giant skeleton and beg Yi how to send the purple spirit heavenly grass to her Mo family to save her grandfather. Let's see if your bones are harder or if my heaven-devouring rat's teeth are harder. Hearing the skeleton's arrogant tone, Yi Hao was instantly displeased. The heaven-devouring rat's teeth were able to bite people of a higher level. However, the only drawback was that he had left all the sage-level heaven-devouring rats in the Fire Dragon Empire. As for the remaining heaven-devouring rats, their levels were too low and they might not be able to harm the giant skeleton. System, how many peak martial god pills can I exchange for with my reputation points? Yi Hao immediately asked the system. You can exchange for 3 pills. Exchange. Hearing the system's words, Yi Hao immediately replied without hesitation. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for successfully exchanging for 3 peak martial god pills. Whether it works or not depends on you guys. Yi Hao summoned the 3 heaven-devouring rats and fed them a peak martial god pill each. Eat him. After the heaven-devouring rats had finished digesting the pill, Yi Hao immediately ordered the heaven-devouring rats. Squeak, squeak, squeak. After the 3 heaven-devouring rats received Yi Hao's order, their huge bodies also burst forth with super-fast speed. 3 lousy rats, this king is still not afraid. Seeing the heaven-devouring rats rushing towards it, the giant skeleton said in disdain. In the past, you were defeated by me. Today, you are still defeated by me. The giant skeleton did not put the 3 heaven-devouring rats in its eyes. A huge black claw grabbed towards the giant dragon's head. Roar. The giant dragon roared and swung its tail forward to block the attack of the huge claw. Bang! The two collided. In an instant, the giant dragon's scales shattered and traces of blood seeped out. The giant dragon let out a painful roar. As for the giant skeleton, it was as if it did not feel pain. Taking advantage of the victory, it continued to attack the giant dragon relentlessly. Roar. The giant dragon was also annoyed. Ignoring the pain on its tail, it slammed towards the giant skeleton's head. Gui Yifan and Mo Jingfang were not idle either. They attacked the giant skeleton's head from 2 different directions. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The 3 heaven-devouring rats bit towards the giant skeleton's 2 huge legs. Roar. The giant skeleton's legs were in pain, and it immediately roared loudly. Its weakness is its legs. Hearing the giant skeleton cry out for the first time, Yi Hao shouted excitedly. Hearing Yi Hao's words, the giant dragon, Gui Yifan, and Mo Jingfang all gave up on attacking the giant skeleton's head. They turned around and attacked the giant skeleton's legs. The giant skeleton instantly panicked. One had to know that the cultivation technique that it cultivated could increase its defense by countless times. However, it had not completely mastered it yet. Its 2 huge legs were its fatal weakness now. It really works. The giant dragon whipped its tail on the giant leg. Instantly, black blood splattered everywhere. The giant dragon immediately attacked again. Hearing the giant skeleton cry out in pain, the giant dragon was filled with joy. Because after so many years, it finally had its revenge. Although it had not killed the giant skeleton, it was very satisfied to hear the giant skeleton cry out in pain. Damned rats, it's all because of you. This king will eat you all. The giant skeleton's anger could only be vented on the heaven-devouring rats. The giant skeleton raised its huge claws and slapped towards a heaven-devouring rat. Squeak! The heaven-devouring rat sensed the skeleton's intention. It did not run away. Instead, it charged towards the giant skeleton. Kacha kacha. Suddenly, the sound of bones being chewed was heard. The giant skeleton was stunned and hurriedly looked at its arm. It realized that the heaven-devouring rat was actually hugging its arm and happily biting it. The best thing was that the defense that it was so proud of was like tofu in front of the heaven-devouring rat. It could not withstand a single blow. Scram! The giant skeleton immediately slapped towards the heaven-devouring rat. Chapter 578. Right now, it was fighting against 6 peak martial gods. Moreover, its defensive advantage was non-existent in front of the heaven-devouring rats. The giant skeleton knew that it was definitely not a match for them now. If it didn't have the heaven-devouring rats, it would definitely have no problem fighting against 6 alone. But now that it hadn't completed its transformation, it didn't even have the advantage of defense, and it had a weakness on its body. How could it fight? Just you wait, this king will take revenge. The giant skeleton followed the principle of running away if it couldn't win and jumped into the water. It believed that with the protection of the lake water, its life was saved. It was just a pity that it lost the purple soul divine grass. Otherwise, with the purple soul divine grass, its transformation might have been faster. But now it couldn't care so much. It only wanted to save its life. Don't chase, this lake water is strange. Seeing that the heaven-devouring rats were still chasing, Yi Hao immediately stopped them. When the 3 heaven-devouring rats heard Yi Hao's words, they immediately transformed into their human forms. In the 10,000 countries continent, as long as a magical beast broke through to the martial god level, it could transform into a human form. Lord! The 3 heaven-devouring rats immediately bowed respectfully to Yi Hao. Get up! Yi Hao nodded. This time, it's all thanks to you guys. Yi Hao looked at the 3 heaven-devouring rats. Their figures were on the plump side, and their eyes were darting around. There were even a few long whiskers at the corner of their mouths, looking very wretched and funny. Lord! At this moment, the giant dragon had also transformed into its human form. It was wearing a body of golden armor and bowed to Yi Hao. Yi Hao wasn't surprised by the giant dragon's appearance. The giant dragon looked like a middle-aged man with a sharp face. He looked quite handsome and his entire body looked very tall and sturdy. If this was on Earth, he would be an uncle-level male god and would definitely be able to obtain a group of fangirls. Thank you. Mo Jingfang also flew in front of Yi Hao and thanked him. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. See you later. After Mo Jingfang finished speaking, she didn't wait for Yi Hao to react and had already soared into the sky. Looking at Mo Jingfang's departing figure, Yi Hao had a trace of reluctance in his eyes. However, he also knew that the people who needed the purple soul divine grass were definitely patients for whom time waited for no one. And for Mo Jingfang to leave in such a hurry, that person must be very important to her. Master, where are we going? The giant dragon looked at the lake cautiously, but there was nothing he could do. This was because he also had an innate feeling that this lake was definitely dangerous. Otherwise, the giant skeleton wouldn't have hidden in the lake. The origin source fragment is more important. Let's return to Gudanzin first. Yi Hao said immediately. Then, he put everyone away and used Gudanzin's teleportation talisman. This was Gudanzin's teleportation talisman. He had specifically asked the first Supreme Elder for it when he left Gudanzin. After Yi Hao glanced at the Black Lake, he immediately tore open the teleportation talisman. Right now, it was more important to find the origin source fragment. Right after Yi Hao left, a ripple appeared on the surface of the lake, and then, a giant skeleton was revealed. Looks like that kid has one too. The giant skeleton smiled as it looked at the origin source fragment in its hand. Gudanzin, why am I back? Yi Hao? Why are you here? I think I had a dream. What happened? After returning to Gudanzin, Yi Hao let Guo Zhenyu, Guo Xuefu, and Mu Qingyu out. The 3 of them slowly woke up and looked around in a daze. Then, they said with a confused expression. Yi Hao immediately explained everything from the beginning to the end. Guo said awkwardly, "It's all my fault for being careless and causing you trouble." "Uncle Guo, what are you saying? If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have fallen into Wang Guanxiong's trap," Yi Hao said quickly. "Oh right, I have something that I need Uncle Guo's help with. I wonder." Yi Hao looked at Guo and didn't know what to say. After all, that was the sect leader's token. It would be presumptuous of him to ask directly. "Is there a need to hesitate between the two of us? If there's anything, just say it." Guo smiled at Yi Hao. Guo was also curious about what Yi Hao could ask of him. The two girls also looked at Yi Hao curiously. "Yi Hao, just say it. As long as my father can help, he will definitely help," Guo Shuefu said as she held Yi Hao's arm. "That's right. Uncle Guo likes you a lot. If there's anything, just say it." Mu Qingyu also said from the side. The two girls had been left in Gadanzan by Yi Hao, and they had heard Guo mention Yi Hao a lot. Hence, they could tell that Guo liked Yi Hao a lot. Seeing how everyone was looking at him, Yi Hao didn't hesitate. "I would like to borrow the sect leader's token." "Sect leader's token?" Guo was stunned at first, then he smiled and said, "Could it be that you have taken a fancy to my Gadanzan? If that's the case, that's great. I'll give you the token now." Guo was about to take out the token when he finished speaking. In his opinion, Gadanzan would definitely have a better future in Yi Hao's hands. Seeing that Guo had misunderstood, Yi Hao quickly explained. Hearing Yi Hao's explanation, Guo looked a little disappointed. "I see. Here's the token." "Thank you, Uncle Guo." Yi Hao immediately thanked Guo after taking the token from him. Yi Hao suddenly appeared in the Roaring Beast Valley. Whether the origin fragment is here or not depends on the order. Yi Hao glanced at the empty Roaring Beast Valley and took out 3 tokens. After the 3 tokens appeared, they emitted a dazzling golden light. Then, they floated into the air and merged together. Rumble! Suddenly, there was a loud noise and a golden door appeared between heaven and earth. Yi Hao immediately flew forward and grabbed the token in his hand. Yi Hao took a closer look at the golden door. There was indeed a groove on the golden door that was the same size as the token in his hand. Is it the origin fragment or not? Yi Hao was a little nervous. He couldn't help but take a deep breath and put the token in the groove. Rumble! After Yi Hao put the token in the groove, the giant golden door suddenly began to shake violently. A gap gradually appeared in the middle of the giant golden door. As the gap grew larger, Yi Hao felt that something was wrong. Yi Hao was worried that there was danger behind the golden door. He couldn't help but take 2 steps back vigilantly until the giant golden door was completely open. Outside the giant door, he couldn't see what was behind the giant door. For the sake of the origin fragment, Yi Hao had no choice but to walk over. "I'm counting on you." Not knowing what was behind the golden door, Yi Hao didn't dare to take the risk. He summoned a sky-devouring rat and instructed it. After receiving Yi Hao's order, the sky-devouring rat immediately squeaked and went into the golden door. Chapter 579. Hearing the sky-devouring rat's cry, Yi Hao's heart jumped as he looked at the golden door nervously. Squeak, squeak. Suddenly, a head popped out from the golden door. After seeing Yi Hao, it immediately rushed over. Seeing the sky-devouring rat, Yi Hao was delighted. This was because the sky-devouring rat was holding a red fragment in its mouth. It was emitting a dazzling light. It was the origin fragment. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for obtaining the 7th origin fragment. You have obtained 300 million experience points. Please continue to work hard. After the sky-devouring rat came out, the golden door behind it also disappeared. Just when Yi Hao was still immersed in the joy of obtaining the origin fragment, a message came from the sound transmission talisman. Damn the 4 evil spirits! Yi Hao took out the sound transmission talisman. After reading the message, He almost smashed the sound transmission talisman. This was because the sound transmission talisman was sent by Guan Yu. Just now, the four evil spirits suddenly announced that they were encircling the Fire Dragon Empire. Although the Fire Dragon Empire seemed to be developing well, it was definitely not a match for the four evil spirits. This time, the four evil spirits had mobilized 1 billion soldiers, nearly 1,000 martial gods, and more than 100,000 martial saints. So many experts. It seems that the situation in the Myriad Kingdom continent is very deep. Seeing the number of experts on the sound transmission talisman, Yi Hao sighed. Let's go back to the Fire Dragon Empire first. Yi Hao hurriedly left the Beast Roar Valley. He did not have time to say goodbye to Guo and directly returned to the Fire Dragon Empire. Master, you're finally back. After Yi Hao returned to the Fire Dragon Empire, he immediately gathered everyone. What's the situation now? Yi Hao glanced at everyone and asked. Master, the four evil spirits have just released the news. It is estimated that in a month, they will attack the Fire Dragon Empire. The Queen of Death said in a hoarse voice. At this moment, her feelings were the most complicated because she knew very well how terrifying the four evil spirits were. But now, as a member of the Fire Dragon Empire, she had no choice but to accept it. She was already prepared to die in battle. Because the current Fire Dragon Empire could not be compared to the four evil spirits. The Four Fiends Divine Alliance was the #1 faction below the Divine Grade factions. Although the Fire Empire's dragon's power, its strength was lacking. There were no more than 50 martial gods in the Flame Dragon Empire. That was 20 times the number of martial gods. Although there were many martial sages, there were only 20,000 of them. Compared to the 100,000 of the Four Evils Divine Alliance, the difference was 5 times. Furthermore, the Four Fiends Divine Alliance had mobilized 1 billion elite. The weakest among them were martial kings. This was something that the Yen Dragon Empire could not compare to. Right now, the majority of the Yen Dragon Empire's soldiers were only at the rank of martial general. Martial marquis were already considered elite. The four evil spirits were martial kings at the very least. If the two armies fought, it would be a massacre. Yi Hao looked around and saw that everyone in the hall had a worried look on their faces. Yi Hao did not blame them. He also knew the pressure in their hearts. Not to mention the others, even he himself was very anxious. He did not expect the four evil spirits to act so quickly. They did not give him a chance to react at all. Also, it would take half a year for the barracks to be upgraded. By the time the barracks were upgraded, the entire Fire Dragon Empire would have been destroyed. But he could not think of any way to resist the encirclement of the four evil spirits. It was even more impossible to rely on the origin fragment. This was because he had no clue at all about the remaining 2 origin fragments. Time. What Yi Hao lacked now was time. But there was only 1 month left. He really could not think of what he could be thankful for. Yi Hao felt like his head was about to explode. Yi Hao closed his eyes and pondered, am I really going to sit here and wait for death? The civil and military officials looked at Yi Hao quietly. They did not dare to make a sound for fear of disturbing Yi Hao. They knew that Yi Hao was thinking of a countermeasure. But they really could not think of any way Yi Hao could come up with to resist the encirclement of the four evil spirits in less than a month's time. If they were to make the decision, they would either surrender or run for their lives. Reporting to Your Majesty, bad news. The Zhou family has betrayed the Fire Dragon Empire. At that moment, a guard ran into the hall to report. What? The Zhou family is an Emperor-class faction. How could they withdraw right after joining Yanlong? Preposterous. That damned Zhou family. When they joined Yanlong, they swore to be absolutely loyal and devoted to His Majesty. This Yanlong hasn't even attacked yet, and the Zhou family is already backing down. What a bunch of good-for-nothings. The civil and military officials began to discuss spiritedly. Reporting to Your Majesty, The Yuan family has also announced that they are leaving the Fire Dragon Empire. Reporting to Your Majesty, the Yu family has also announced that they are leaving the Fire Dragon Empire. Reporting to Your Majesty, the Yang family has also announced that they are leaving the Fire Dragon Empire. Reporting to Your Majesty, the Kong family has also announced that they are leaving the Fire Dragon Empire. The guards outside the door came in one after another, all of them anxiously making their reports. The more the civil and military officials in the hall heard, the darker their complexions became. In just a short while, nearly 100 families had betrayed the Fire Dragon Empire. One had to know that the weakest of these families was an Emperor-class faction, and there were quite a few Emperor-class factions. Although they were all families, each family needed their own disciples and guard. This was quite a force to be reckoned with. But who would have thought that these families would flee on their own when the 4 evil spirits had just announced that they were encircling the Fire Dragon Empire and hadn't even attacked 10 times? One had to know that because the Fire Dragon Empire's dragon force had increased explosively, the martial force in the air had increased explosively. These factions had begged their grandparents to join the Fire Dragon Empire. When they first joined the Fire Dragon Empire, they all swore that they would never betray the Fire Dragon Empire. The betrayal of these families would undoubtedly cause unrest among the people of the Fire Dragon Empire, bringing an even greater crisis to the Fire Dragon Empire. Everyone's faces were filled with anxiety as they looked at Yi Hao anxiously. However, Yi Hao was still deep in thought with his eyes closed. No, I can't just sit here and wait for death. Even if I die, I have to fight. Suddenly, Yi Hao opened his eyes, which shone with a strong fighting spirit. Why are there so many people? Because he had been in deep thought, Yi Hao only just realized that the hall was full of guards. What happened? Yi Hao asked in a low voice. Hearing the words of the guards, Yi Hao's expression darkened. He hated these opportunists the most. When they saw that the Fire Dragon Empire had benefits, they all wanted a piece of the cake. But when something happened, they didn't help at all and just wanted to leave. They really treated the Fire Dragon Empire as a hotel, coming and going as they pleased. They didn't even put him, the Emperor, in their eyes. Then I'll use you all to vent the anger in my heart. These people were heartless, so Yi Hao wouldn't give them any face. Chapter 580. Hearing Yi Hao's words, all the officials immediately knelt on the ground and waited for Yi Hao's imperial edict. All families can leave the Fire Dragon Empire, but they can never join the Fire Dragon Empire again. Yi Hao announced his first order. Hearing Yi Hao's first order, everyone looked up at Yi Hao in shock. They didn't understand why Yi Hao would give such an order. Because in their opinion, this order was dispensable and wouldn't have any effect at all. Because the Fire Dragon Empire might not even have a future against the 4 evil spirits. Your Majesty, you can't let them off so easily. Your Majesty, this punishment is too light. In your humble servant's opinion, they should all be arrested on the charge of treason. That's right, Your Majesty. Even if you don't arrest them, you can't let them off so easily. Many of the officials couldn't stand it anymore and spoke up. Who said I'm going to let them off so easily? Yi Hao smiled and retorted. Hearing Yi Hao's words, everyone quieted down and waited for Yi Hao's next order. I love my people and won't take their lives, but they can't stay in the Fire Dragon Empire for so long for nothing. They have to pay the price. Pass down my decree. They can leave, but they can't take anything with them. Everyone didn't understand. The Fire Dragon Empire was in danger, so why did Yi Hao care about those worldly possessions? In the eyes of the crowd, Yi Hao was only doing this because those families had no other choice. He had left the things of those families behind just to protect his own face. But did Yi Hao think that way? That was obviously impossible. Leave this matter to the guards. If anyone dares to resist, kill them without mercy. Yi Hao ordered the golden-armored warriors. This general obeys. The leader of the golden-armored warriors hurriedly said, After this matter is done, come to my study. Yi Hao continued to say to the leader of the golden-armored warriors. Patriarch, is it okay for us to leave like this? Will young Emperor Yanlong yield? In the Zhou family mansion, some elders looked at the family head worriedly. Humph! Could it be that the Fire Dragon Empire wants us to be buried with him? Wishful thinking. Patriarch Zhou coldly snorted. What the Patriarch said makes sense, but I'm worried that young Emperor Yanlong won't be so easy to talk to. An elder agreed but was also worried. Who cares if he's easy to talk to or not? With so many families leaving, how could he have the time to take care of them? However, it's better for us to leave as soon as possible. Family head Zhou sneered. Surround him. Suddenly, a loud shout came from the sky. Hearing this shout, the Zhou family's patriarch and the elders' faces suddenly changed. How could he be so fast? Everyone from the Zhou clan had ugly expressions. Could it be that young Emperor Yanlong wants to make an example out of us? An elder guessed. It seems so. There are at least hundreds of powerful auras around. They are at least martial sages. Another elder said. Why are you panicking? We didn't sell it to young Emperor Yanlong. How dare they stop us? They're too overbearing. Could it be that they don't want to die and drag us down with them? Patriarch Zhou said unhappily. Everyone quieted down. They all understood that Patriarch Zhou's words were just an excuse to comfort themselves and force them to calm down. After all, they had vowed to join the Fire Dragon Empire. Now that the Fire Dragon Empire was in trouble, they wanted to wash their hands of it. How could there be so many good things in the world? May I ask who has come to our small Zhou clan? What orders do you have for us? Patriarch Zhou's expression changed and he asked with a smile. You don't need to know who I am. His Majesty just asked me to verify whether your Zhou clan betrayed the Fire Dragon Empire. A golden armored guard asked. Everyone from the Zhou clan looked at each other and then at Patriarch Zhou. They wanted to know his answer. Patriarch Zhou's answer might represent the fate of the Zhou clan. Patriarch Zhou hesitated for a moment. He didn't know what Yi Hao's decision was, so he didn't dare to speak. This was because he was also afraid that Yi Hao would kill them and make an example out of the Zhou clan. Although he dared to betray the Fire Dragon Empire, they didn't dare to become enemies with the Fire Dragon Empire. They knew that they were no match for them. Seeing that Patriarch Zhou didn't speak, the golden armored guard said, His Majesty has decreed that you can leave the Fire Dragon Empire, but you can't join the Fire Dragon Empire in the future. Hearing the golden armored guard's words, the Zhou clan's eyes lit up. Humph, who wants to join a country that's about to be destroyed? Now, even if you beg us to stay, we won't, unless we're tired of living. Hearing the golden armored guard's words, everyone thought so in their hearts. As for Patriarch Zhou and the elders, they already knew that Yi Hao was going to let them go. Thinking of this, Patriarch Zhou said, The Fire Dragon Empire is vast and rich in resources. It's strong in martial arts. A small clan like ours doesn't have the face to stay here. It's better for us to leave and leave this place to the people who need it. Patriarch Zhou is really considerate of the Fire Dragon Empire. The golden armored guard couldn't stand Patriarch Zhou's words and directly mocked him. If it wasn't for Yi Hao's order that as long as the Zhou clan's resources weren't harmed, he would definitely teach this fence-sitter a lesson. He was clearly a traitor, yet he still acted so high and mighty. Hearing the golden armored guards mocking, everyone in the Zhou clan was embarrassed, but they pretended that they didn't hear it. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and pack up and leave. Seeing that his clansmen were still in a daze, Patriarch Zhou knew that they shouldn't stay here for long. He was afraid that Yi Hao would change his mind, so he said to his clansmen in a deep voice, Wait a moment. Looking at everyone packing up, the golden armored guard said with a cold face, Is there anything else, sir? Patriarch Zhou paused for a moment and looked at the golden armored guard with a smile. His Majesty has decreed that you people can leave, but leave these things behind. The golden armored guard pointed at the resources that everyone was moving around. What? Everyone was shocked. Patriarch Zhou's face was full of awkwardness. He suppressed the anger in his heart and said, "Sir, you're joking, right? These resources belong to my Zhou clan. They have nothing to do with your Fire Dragon Empire." "That's right. Your Fire Dragon Empire is about to be destroyed. What right do you have to snatch our Zhou clan's things? Your Fire Dragon Empire is too overbearing. How can you be reasonable? The Fire Dragon Empire is simply a bunch of bandits." Everyone in the Zhou clan spoke passionately. Chapter 581. Men, surround them. The warrior in golden armor waved his arm and shouted. He did not appear, but the ancient beasts at the peak of the martial sage realm had already suppressed the Zhou clan to the point of suffocation. "Master, what should we do?" The elders looked at the master anxiously. The master of the Zhou clan looked at the warrior in golden armor with resentment and said painfully, "Let's go. Don't take anything with you. Just treat it as a burial gift for them." The master of the Zhou clan transmitted his voice to the others. Then, he waved his sleeves angrily and turned to leave. The Zhou clan members hurriedly chased after him. "Sigh, I don't know what your majesty needs these things for." Seeing the Zhou clan members leave, the warrior in golden armor sighed. He left behind a few ancient beasts to watch over them and set off for the next clan. Naturally, the guards would take care of these things. In one night, nearly 100 Emperor-level clans in the Fire Dragon Empire had betrayed the Fire Dragon Empire. Although all their resources had been confiscated, it did not stop them from leaving the Fire Dragon Empire. In their opinion, staying in the Fire Dragon Empire was equivalent to waiting for death. This made many forces look down on the Fire Dragon Empire even more. Even the Emperor-level clans had betrayed the Empire. What else could they use to fight the four evil spirits? "Your Majesty, I've invited most of the traitorous clans in the Fire Dragon Empire." In a secret chamber in the Bai Xing dynasty, a general reported respectfully to the Bai Xing Holy Emperor. "Good, very good." The Bai Xing Holy Emperor was full of joy as he praised repeatedly. "Your Majesty, shall we go see them now or leave them to dry?" the general asked carefully. "They must have been rejected in the Fire Dragon Empire. Now is the time for me to win their hearts. Let's go see them." The Bai Xing Holy Emperor smiled with his eyes narrowed. Then, he got up and walked out. He had already suffered heavy casualties in the battle with Mu Shengzhen. Now that Mu Shengzhen had been destroyed by Yi Hao, he did not get any benefits at all. Moreover, Mu Shengzhen's secret technique, which he coveted the most, suddenly disappeared without a trace. Therefore, at this moment, he was filled with hatred for Yi Hao. Moreover, Yi Hao was most likely to be his son's murderer. However, he wasn't a match for the Fire Dragon Empire. After all, the Fire Dragon Empire had been in the limelight during the Myriad Kingdom ceremony and was currently flourishing. Originally, he was already prepared to flee for his life at any time. He had a feeling that Yi Hao wouldn't let the Bai Xing dynasty off so easily. After all, the grudge had already been formed. However, he didn't expect that the four evil spirits would suddenly attack the Fire Dragon Empire. This was definitely a pleasant surprise for him. However, he also knew that he would not be able to obtain the dragon power of the Fire Dragon Empire. After all, who would dare to fight against the four evil spirits? However, if the four evil spirits attacked the Fire Dragon Empire, the Fire Dragon Empire definitely wouldn't have the leisure to attack him. At least he would be safe. However, he still wanted to rob the Fire Dragon Empire. Coincidentally, news had spread that the Fire Dragon Empire's imperial clans and above had betrayed him. This was a gift delivered to his doorstep. Therefore, he sent people to invite these clans to the Bai Xing dynasty. In the end, these empty-handed clans were very respectful and had already gathered at the Bai Xing dynasty. "Little brat Yanlong, you really deserve to die. You actually made my 1,000 years of foundation go bankrupt overnight. I've long heard that Yen Long Brat is arrogant and despotic, but I didn't expect it to be true. I really regret joining the Fire Dragon Empire. Fortunately, the 4 evil spirits are here to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and get rid of this scourge. The Bai Xing dynasty's holy emperor heard the discussions even before he entered the main hall. A cold smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. In his opinion, Yi Hao's punishment for these people was too light. If this had happened to him, he would have killed these people if they dared to betray him. However, he was enemies with Yi Hao, and he needed these people for his own use. Therefore, he had to provoke these people's emotions and make them work together against a common enemy. Bai Xing dynasty straightened his dragon robe and coughed. The Holy Emperor has arrived. The eunuch beside Bai Xing dynasty shouted at the top of his lungs. The entire hall fell silent as everyone sized up the Holy Emperor. Bai Xing dynasty was dressed in a purple-gold dragon robe and a purple-gold crown. His majestic figure gave people a sense of oppression. However, at this moment, Saint Emperor Bai wore a smile on his face and looked very amiable. No one dared to be careless. After all, anyone who could become a holy emperor was a decisive person. How could there be someone who was truly amiable? Everyone quickly bowed and said, "Greetings, Holy Emperor." Everyone, there's no need to be so polite. I've heard about your situation and felt that it was unfair. Holy Emperor Bai Xing said angrily as he sat on the throne. Thank you for your concern, Holy Emperor Bai Xing. What do you think? Holy Emperor Bai Xing asked as he scanned the crowd. Everyone was at a loss for words. They did not know why the Holy Emperor Bai Xing had come, and they did not dare to speak carelessly. Everyone, please feel free to realize that I'm also irreconcilable with that brat Yi Hao. Holy Emperor Bai Xing said angrily when he saw everyone's cautious expressions. The moment Holy Emperor Bai Xing thought of Yi Hao, he thought of his son's death. Yi Hao was his only son, and his murderous intent exploded. Holy Emperor Bai Xing revealed his murderous intent when he mentioned Yi Hao. Everyone was delighted, because it seemed that Saint Bai and Saint Emperor were at least on the same side. Holy Emperor, please calm down. Everyone said in unison. Do you have anywhere to go in the future? Holy Emperor Bai Xing tried to control his anger as he looked at the crowd with a sharp gaze. Everyone looked at each other and began to think about their own plans. They knew that it was time for them to show their loyalty. Moreover, it was rare for a dynasty to take them in, and it was better than having no home to return to. Moreover, they were penniless. If they could not find a place to stay, their clansmen would probably break up. After all, if their clansmen wanted to develop and become stronger, they needed to cultivate. Cultivation also required a large amount of resources. Holy Emperor Bai Xing was a resource that came to their doorstep. At this moment, they could only rely on Holy Emperor Bai Xing. There was no other way. The Zhou clan is willing to join the Bai Xing dynasty and be loyal to Holy Emperor Bai Xing. We will be at your beck and call. The Li clan will do the same. The Sun clan also agrees to join the Bai Xing dynasty. May our Holy Emperor live forever. Holy Emperor Bai Xing sneered when he saw everyone expressing their loyalty. He knew that these people were only saying that because they had nowhere else to go and saw the benefit. If he was in danger, they would definitely leave. Chapter 582. Although he knew it, he still needed to make use of these people. Naturally, he would not point it out. Since you have joined my Bai Xing dynasty, I will not be stingy. I will open up a place for your elites to cultivate. You can use the resources inside as you wish. Saint Emperor Bai said with narrowed eyes. The clan leaders were like old foxes. None of them were happy to hear Saint Emperor Bai's words. Logically speaking, they should be happy that Saint Emperor Bai was providing them with resources for free. But looking at it from a long-term perspective, Saint Bai and Saint Emperor had their lives in their hand. Because the most valuable thing in a clan was its elite. If the elites wanted to cultivate, they would have to go to the place opened up by Saint Emperor Bai. Were those elites from his clan, or were they the elites of Saint Bai and the Holy Emperor? Although they could now guarantee that their clansmen were loyal to their clans. But who could guarantee that they would not betray their clans after being tempted by Saint Emperor Bai? But the most important thing now was resources. They also knew that Saint Emperor Bai would not give them benefits for free. If they had resources, their clans would have a chance to become stronger. But if they did not have resources, their clans would not be able to hold on for long. So even though they knew it, they had to take the risk. They could only pin their hopes on the loyalty of their clansmen. But most of them were still confident in the elites of their clans, because they had been raised to be loyal to their clans since they were young. So in their opinion, Saint Emperor Bai's actions were destined to be a waste of effort. But they were just comforting themselves. After all, they could not guarantee that they could remain loyal to their clans in the face of absolute benefits, let alone their clansmen. Thank you, Saint Emperor. Although they had mixed feelings, they could only express their gratitude. There was no better option for them to choose. Haha, get up. You are now part of my Bai Xing dynasty. Today I am in a good mood. Let's get drunk. Remember to bring your clansmen. Saint Emperor Bai said with a smile. He did not forget to remind them. Everyone's hearts tightened. They did not expect Saint Emperor Bai to act so quickly. It was just the beginning, and he had to establish an image in front of their clansmen. Everyone had awkward expressions on their faces. At this moment, they were wondering if they had done the right thing. Humph, do you really think I'm a fool? If you want to get something from me, you have to pay the price. Saint Emperor Bai sneered in his heart. He had long since thought of a countermeasure. He wanted to make these old foxes into mere figureheads and nurture all the elites of the family into his own people. The combined power of the elites of the imperial clans was definitely not to be underestimated. It was almost impossible to do so under normal circumstances, because those families must have instilled loyalty in their people. However, he believed that all loyalty would be vulnerable in the face of resources, benefits, and future prospects. That was because these clans were no longer able to give their clansmen anything, but he could. Saint Emperor Bai laughed coldly in his heart. Yi Hao, oh Yi Hao, it seems like I have to thank you. I will definitely give you a big present when the time comes. Your Majesty, all of the clan's resources have been cleared out. The cultivation techniques, battle techniques, and other artifacts have all been sent to the army. The rest of the resources have been sent to the national treasury. The golden-armored warrior commander handed the tabulated list to Yi Hao. After reading the list, Yi Hao was a little surprised. It seems like these imperial clans are really rich. It was no wonder that he was surprised. The resources seized this time were more than 10 times what the Fire Dragon Empire had accumulated over the past few years. Yi Hao was a little regretful that he hadn't made a move against those clans earlier. These imperial clans were so rich that they were overflowing with oil. However, obtaining so many resources was of great help to the plan in his heart. After all, it wasn't easy to fight against the 4 evil spirit. The golden-armored warrior commander frowned. He didn't understand how Yi Hao could still smile. Although they had seized a lot of resources this time, the Fire Dragon Empire was about to be destroyed. What use would they have for those resources? Let me ask you, do you have a way to contact my mother? Yi Hao looked at the golden-armored warrior and asked with a complicated expression. He couldn't help but feel a little awkward when he said the word mother. Your Majesty, do you want Imperial Ant to make a move? But if the Purple Sky's Supreme God Emperor finds out, I'm afraid it'll be bad for you. The golden-armored warrior commander said worriedly. Although Imperial Ant could easily solve the problem in front of her, if the Purple Sky Supreme God Emperor got hold of her weakness, it would undoubtedly be a big problem. I have my own decisions. Do you have any? Yi Hao asked anxiously. After all, whether or not he could defeat the 4 demons' divine union was the key. I don't. The golden-armored warrior commander shook his head. Hearing the golden-armored warrior commander's words, Yi Hao was a little disappointed. However, he was already prepared for this. It seems like I have to make a trip there personally. Your Majesty, you can't. If you go to the Purple Sky Supreme God Kingdom, your life will be in danger. I'm afraid even Imperial Ant won't be able to protect you. Hearing Yi Hao's muttering, the golden-armored warrior commander's eyes widened and he hurriedly tried to dissuade him. Tell me the location and come with me. Yi Hao didn't want to explain. He had 1,000 transformations. Even if he went to the Purple Sky Supreme God Kingdom and his life was in danger, he wouldn't really die. As long as his doppelganger didn't die, he could live. Moreover, it was time for him to meet his cheap mother. Yes, Your Majesty. The golden-armored warrior commander saw that his dissuasion was fruitless and could only agree. Yi Hao decided to go with his true body. After all, he was going to meet his mother, even if it was with his doppelganger. However, which child in the world didn't want to show their best side in front of their mother? The true body was stronger than the doppelganger and Yi Hao was no exception. Yi Hao left a doppelganger behind to oversee the Fire Dragon Empire and set off with the golden-armored warrior commander that very night. Your Majesty, the Purple Sky Supreme God Kingdom's divine city is right in front of us. The golden-armored warrior commander pointed to the huge object in the sky in the distance. A flying city. Yi Hao was secretly shocked when he saw the huge city floating in the sky. He couldn't help but sigh at the Purple Sky Supreme God Kingdom's generosity. Your Majesty, this city is called the Purple Sky Supreme God Kingdom. It's a divine artifact. The Purple Sky Supreme God Kingdom alone can withstand the simultaneous attacks of thousands of martial God realm experts. The golden-armored warrior introduced. Moreover, there are only 4 cities like the Purple Sky Supreme God Kingdom in the Myriad Kingdom continent, and they are in the hands of the 4 great divine forces. I wonder if my Flying Dragon Divine Palace can compare to the Purple Sky Supreme God Kingdom. Chapter 583. 2 Country Bumpkins Who Have Never Seen the World. Seeing Yi Hao stop outside Zetian City, a passing youth sneered disdainfully. Outrageous, who are you talking about? Hearing the youth's words, the golden-armored warrior directly pulled out his weapon. The youth could have said anything, but he actually said his lord. Business is more important. Yi Hao glanced at the youth and was too lazy to pay attention to him. It was just a fool looking for a sense of existence, why should he care about it? Humph, country bumpkin. Seeing Yi Hao ignore him and walk past him, the youth continued to speak disdainfully. Looking for a beating. Yi Hao originally didn't want to provoke trouble, but the youth was endless, and he really couldn't tolerate it. Yi Hao clenched his fists and rushed towards the youth. Courting death. The youth was a little surprised. He didn't expect Yi Hao to dare to attack him. However, when he saw Yi Hao attacking him, he was overjoyed. With his own cultivation, he was a first-order martial god. In Zetian City, his strength was considered a top existence among the younger generation, and he saw that Yi Hao was about the same age as him, and he was a stranger. Seeing the shocked expression on Zetian City's face, it was obvious that he was not from Zetian City. Since he was not from Zetian City, it would be difficult for Yi Hao's cultivation to surpass him. Therefore, he was already prepared to teach Yi Hao a lesson. Humph! Seeing the youth looking down on him, Yi Hao snorted coldly. He was now a second-order martial saint, but he could fight against a third-order martial god. Therefore, the youth's first-order martial god was nothing in front of him. Boom! Their fists finally collided. How is this possible? When his fist collided with Yi Hao's fist, the youth's expression suddenly changed. It was because he felt a powerful force crushing the martial arts power on his arm and channeling it into his body. Ha! The youth knew that he had been careless. This time, he might have kicked an iron plate. Eating and drinking, he steadied himself. DVVCSC-. Once again, he charged towards Yi Hao. Stop! Who dares to defy the ban and fight outside the Purple Sky City? At this moment, a loud shout was heard. Yi Hao frowned when he heard this voice because it was Zi Xing-er's voice. It was truly a case of enemies meeting on a narrow path. But at this moment, he absolutely could not reveal his identity. Otherwise, he might not even be able to see his mother. It would definitely bring him endless trouble. Yi Hao immediately stopped attacking and turned to leave. The golden-armored warrior commander had already left under Yi Hao's orders. Fortunately, Yi Hao had asked the golden-armored warrior commander to change his clothes. Otherwise, he would have been recognized. What a familiar figure! Zi Xing frowned as she watched Yi Hao leave. She felt that Yi Hao's back was very familiar, as if she had seen him somewhere before. That person, stop right there. Zi Xing pointed at Yi Hao and said in a high and mighty tone. Hearing Zi Xing-er's commanding tone, Yi Hao was very unhappy, but he ignored her and quickly left. Seeing that Yi Hao was ignoring her, Zi Xing-er was instantly annoyed. In this Purple Sky Divine Kingdom, there was actually someone who dared to disobey her orders. He really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Thinking of this, Zi Xing-er wanted to chase after him. So it's Your Highness Xing-er. I wonder why Your Highness Xing-er has the time to leave the city? The youth asked when he saw Zi Xing-er. He instantly threw the matter of Yi Hao to the back of his mind. After all, Zi Xing-er was the eldest princess of the Purple Sky Divine Kingdom. In the future, she might even be a candidate for the Purple Sky Divine Emperor. How could he not curry favor with such an existence? Most importantly, Zi Xing-er was a great beauty. If he could establish an image in Zi Xing-er's heart and win her heart in the end, that would be the best. However, he also knew that this was very slim. However, as long as he could establish a friendship with Zi Xing-er, he would be satisfied. So it's young Master Mu Su. I still have something to do. Let's talk later. Seeing that her path was blocked, Zi Xing-er was furious. She was about to vent her anger, but when she saw that it was Mu Sujian, she could only suppress her anger and say perfunctorily. This was because Mu Sujian's family was also a considerable force in the Purple Sky City. She could not ignore it too much. However, if it were anyone else, she would have already told them to scram. Zi Xing-er directly bypassed Mu Sujian and chased in the direction of Yi Hao. He kept feeling that Yi Hao's back was very familiar. Moreover, when Yi Hao saw him, he turned around and left without saying a word. As long as he wasn't a fool, he would know that something was going on. Sigh, Your Highness Xing-er, wait for me. It wasn't easy for him to meet Zi Xing-er. Mu Sujian naturally wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity and immediately chased after her. Hearing Mu Sujian's words, Zi Xing-er was a little unhappy. However, in order to chase after Yi Hao, she couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. You still want to catch up to me. Just as Zi Xing-er was chasing, Yi Hao had already changed his route and sneaked into the city. With the golden-armored warrior leading the way, Yi Hao wouldn't be in the dark in the Purple Sky City. The two of them quickly found a place to rest and thought of a way to contact the Imperial Ant. Damn it, where is he? Zi Xing-er chased for a long time, but she didn't see Yi Hao. She had to admit that she had lost him. Why are you running so fast, Your Highness Xing-er? Mu Sujian also caught up from behind. Zi Xing-er immediately looked at Mu Sujian. Let me ask you, do you know the person who fought with you just now? You mean that country bumpkin who has never seen the world? Mu Sujian asked curiously. He was a little surprised. Zi Xing-er could ask anyone, but why did she ask about that country bumpkin? Could it be because Yi Hao was more handsome than him? When he thought of Yi Hao's face, to be honest, he was a little jealous. Otherwise, he wouldn't have provoked Yi Hao the moment he came up. It was just because he felt that Yi Hao was more handsome than him. He wanted to find a reason to beat Yi Hao up, but he never thought that he wouldn't be a match for Yi Hao. This made him very distressed. What, you don't know that person? Hearing Mu Sujin's words, Zi Xing was a little surprised. Then why did you fight? Although she had heard that Mu Sujin was a playboy, she never thought that Mu Sujin would teach Yi Hao a lesson just because he was more handsome than him. Mu Sujin was stunned for a moment. Of course, he wouldn't tell the truth. How could I know a country bumpkin? That country bumpkin is too arrogant. He didn't apologize after bumping into me and even dared to insult me. Seeing Mu Sujin's angry expression, Zi Xing believed him a little. However, she was still curious. Who exactly was that familiar figure? Describe that person to me, and how strong he is and how old he is. Zi Xing couldn't see Yi Hao's face clearly, so she could only ask Mu Sujin. Chapter 584. Your Highness Xing don't tell me you've really taken a fancy to that country bumpkin. Mu Sujin guessed as he looked at Zi Xing suspiciously. Mu Sujin stole a glance at Zi Xing and realized that she was looking at him anxiously. This further confirmed his guess. No, I can't let that guy get lucky, Mu Sujin thought to himself. Then, he smiled and said, Your Highness Xing there's no need to worry. I'll help you draw a portrait of that guy. Then, I'll have to trouble you, Master Mu Sujin, Zi Xing said politely. However, the expression on her face was still as unapproachable as ever. Sensing Zi Xing's attitude, although Mu Sujin was displeased, there was nothing he could do. After all, she was a princess. Humph, I'll make sure you can't find that pretty boy. At this moment, Mu Sujin had already attributed all his displeasure to Yi Hao. Obviously, Yi Hao was just a pretty boy in his heart. Mu Sujin began to draw a portrait of Yi Hao. As a martial god, his drawing skills were naturally vivid and there was no need to think too much about it. Therefore, the person that Mu Sujin drew was also drawn to perfection. However, looking at the person in the portrait, Zi Xing frowned completely. Are you sure it's him? Zi Xing looked at the incomparably ugly person in the portrait. With just one glance, she would probably never forget it. She swore that she had never seen this person in her life. Seeing Zi Xing's shocked expression, Mu Sujin laughed in his heart. He had done this on purpose. The person in the portrait definitely had nothing to do with Yi Hao. Not to mention Zi Xing even Mu Sujin admired his own imagination when he saw the person in the portrait. How much of a genius did he have to be able to draw such a disgusting portrait? Thank you, Master Mu Sujin. I still have some matters to attend to. We'll contact each other again in the future. After seeing that she didn't recognize the person in the portrait, Zi Xing couldn't be bothered to stay any longer. She immediately took her leave. Yi Hao didn't know that Mu Sujin's jealousy had saved him a lot of trouble. Young master, I have already asked someone to enter the palace. There should be news soon. In a restaurant, Yi Hao sat by the window and looked in the direction of the imperial palace, listening to the report of the golden-armored warrior. Yi Hao asked worriedly, Are you sure nothing will go wrong? Young master, don't worry. That person is my brother. He definitely won't make a mistake. The golden-armored warrior guaranteed. That's good. Yi Hao took a sip of wine. To be honest, he had mixed feelings. His father, mother, and Mo were all in the palace not far away. However, he did not dare to be careless. Because it was Zi Tianqing, he finally knew how deep the waters of this world were. Disregarding everything else, martial saint experts, who were extremely rare in other forces, could be seen almost everywhere here. As the saying went, martial saints were as numerous as dogs, and martial gods were everywhere. Looking at the crowd below, he saw martial gods passing by from time to time. What surprised Yi Hao the most was that the guards of this restaurant were all at the level of Emperor Wu. Moreover, The currency used for consumption in this restaurant was actually martial Dao crystals. Fortunately, Chen Ziqiao had sold wine previously and earned a sum of martial Dao crystals. Otherwise, it would have been really awkward. Yi Hao waited anxiously for a while, but there was no movement at all. He could only return to his room to wait. "Your Majesty, please rest. It seems that there is no chance today." Seeing that there was no one around, the golden-armored warrior commander said respectfully, "Who is it?" At this moment, the golden-armored warrior shouted in a low voice, and Yi Hao opened his eyes. "One of us." There was a fluctuation of martial Dao power in the room, and a black-clothed man appeared in the room. "Imperial Ant invites you in." Seeing Yi Hao and the golden-armored warrior's nervous expressions, the black-clothed man said. Seeing Yi Hao and the golden-armored warrior commander's worried expressions, the black-clothed man immediately took out a token. "This is Imperial Ant's token. It can't be fake." Yi Hao looked at the token in the black-clothed man's hand, and then looked at the golden-armored warrior commander. Seeing the golden-armored warrior commander nod, Yi Hao was relieved. "Follow me." After the black-clothed man finished speaking, he left first. Looking at the back of the black-clothed man, Yi Hao didn't have time to think too much and followed him out. "Your Majesty, this is not the way to the palace." After flying for a while, they had already left Purple Sky City. The golden-armored warrior commander said anxiously, "Wait a minute." Hearing the golden-armored warrior's words, Yi Hao also felt that something was wrong and hurriedly said to the black-clothed man. However, the black-clothed man ignored him, as if he didn't hear him, and continued to fly forward. Yi Hao was vigilant in his heart. He had no choice but to grit his teeth and follow. After flying for half a day, they finally arrived at the edge of a cliff. "We're here." The black-clothed man stopped and said, "Who exactly are you?" Yi Hao stared at the black-clothed man quietly. At this moment, he couldn't help but suspect that the black-clothed man was up to no good. "You're quite vigilant," the black-clothed man said in a low voice, making it impossible to tell if it was a man or a woman. "If you want to see Imperial Ant, come with me alone. Let her stay here." The black-clothed man only revealed a pair of eyes as he spoke to the golden-armored warrior. "Your Majesty, you can't," the golden-armored warrior said anxiously. "Little guard, how dare you betray the Purple Sky Divine Kingdom? How dare you?" At this moment, the black-clothed man suddenly shouted. Hearing this familiar voice filled with the aura of a superior, the golden-armored warrior was surprised and delighted. "Greetings, Imperial Ant." The golden-armored warrior commander immediately bowed. Although he had already pledged allegiance to Yi Hao was still Imperial Ant's son. Therefore, the golden-armored warrior commander didn't dare to be careless in front of Imperial Ant. "What? Imperial Ant?" Hearing the golden-armored warrior's words, Yi Hao instantly felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His face was blank. "What do you mean? Could this black-clothed man be my mother?" At this moment, Yi Hao thought nervously, but there was also a trace of anticipation. How is that you?" At this moment, the black-clothed man finally took off the black hat on her head, revealing her peerless face. Her voice trembled as she looked at Yi Hao, her eyes filled with tears of excitement. He looked at the middle-aged woman in front of him. She had the aura of a superior, but the way she looked at him was filled with love. Yi Hao already knew in his heart that this person was his mother. However, the two of them had never seen each other since they were young. This first meeting inevitably made Yi Hao feel a little awkward. "Son, can you let mother hug you?" Imperial Ant looked at Yi Hao nervously, as if she was afraid that Yi Hao would refuse. Yi Hao walked over to Imperial Ant nervously. Before he could react, Imperial Ant pulled him into her embrace. Chapter 585. Sigh. The golden-armored warrior commander sighed when he saw the mother and son hugging each other and crying. The only thing that could make Imperial Ant Tang cry was probably this mother and son's reunion. My son, let me take a good look at you. Imperial Aunt Tang let go of Yi Hao and carefully looked at Yi Hao. My son has really grown up. It's all my fault for not fulfilling my responsibilities as a mother all these years. Imperial Aunt Tang looked at Yi Hao with an apologetic and gratified expression and patted Yi Hao's head lovingly. Your Majesty, Imperial Aunt Tang, this is not the place to talk. Let's talk somewhere else. Seeing the two talking, the golden-armored warrior commander couldn't help but interrupt. Don't worry. No one will know if I leave the palace. Imperial Aunt Tang said. Mother, I have something I need your help with. I don't know. Yi Hao said somewhat embarrassedly. However, please say it. As long as I can do it, I will do it. Imperial Aunt Tang said firmly. She had been working hard just to see Yi Hao as soon as possible. She didn't expect that there would be such a pleasant surprise. Yi Hao actually took the initiative to find her. After seeing Yi Hao, she could no longer hold back the motherly love in her heart. At this moment, she couldn't wait to give everything she had to Yi Hao. Mother, my fire dragon empire is currently being attacked by the 4 evil spirits. Yi Hao immediately told his mother about his problem. However, he kept his eyes on his mother. He didn't want to put her in a difficult position because of his problem. The 4 evil spirits. Imperial Aunt Tang's face flashed with anger at the mention of the 4 evil spirit. The 4 evil spirits could have provoked anyone, but they just had to provoke her son. If it were any other force, she would have destroyed them immediately. However, the 4 evil spirits were different because the 4 evil spirits were the leaders of the holy dynasty. They were the targets of every holy dynasty. The 4 evil spirits were easy to deal with, but it wasn't so easy to deal with the forces under the 4 evil spirit. Not to mention other forces, even Imperial Aunt Tang herself had extended an olive branch to the 4 evil spirits. However, the 4 evil spirits dared to touch her son. 4 evil spirits, how Fong Xin, I will make the 4 evil spirits regret living in this world. Lane. The golden-armored warrior seemed to want to say something, but hesitated. After all, he had been in the Violet Sky Divine Kingdom for a long time. Therefore, he more or less had some understanding of the 4 Fiends' divine alliance. The troubled look in his mother's eyes flashed for a moment, but Yi Hao still caught it. But Yi Hao was very satisfied when he heard his mother's words. Moreover, he didn't come here to ask his mother to help him destroy the 4 evil spirit. Mother, I'm not asking you to help me destroy the 4 evil spirits. Yi Hao said directly. You're not. Imperial Aunt Tang was a little confused. She thought Yi Hao was afraid of making things difficult for her, so she said, However, don't worry. Mother doesn't care about the 4 evil spirit. Seeing that his mother had misunderstood, Yi Hao said directly, Mother, I want you to help me delay the 4 evil spirits' encirclement. You only need to delay them for half a year. Delay their encirclement? Half a year? This time, Imperial Aunt Tang was even more confused. She didn't understand what was the use of delaying the 4 evil spirits for half a year. Could it be that Yi Hao could deal with the 4 evil spirits in half a year's time? But then, Imperial Aunt Tang shook her head and threw this ridiculous thought to the back of her mind. However, what are your plans? Can you tell me? Or do you want me to buy time for you to withdraw your fire dragon empire? Imperial Aunt Tang thought about it and could only think that Yi Hao didn't want to make things difficult for her, so he wanted to buy time for half a year to escape. Thinking of this, Imperial Aunt Tang couldn't hold back the urge to cry. Because the more Yi Hao did this, the more she blamed herself. Looking at Yi Hao's determined personality, it was definitely not something that could be cultivated in a day or two. Moreover, Yi Hao was able to cultivate to such a level and even own a country. He even became the most dazzling person in the grand ceremony and caused a sensation in the entire continent. The difficulties behind this were unimaginable. 4 people at Yi Hao's age, they all grew up under the wings of their parent. On the other hand, Yi Hao relied completely on himself to grow to such a level. Mother, believe me. Give me half a year's time, and I will definitely destroy the 4 evil spirit. Yi Hao's eyes shone with confidence. Seeing the confidence in Yi Hao's eyes, Imperial Aunt Tang wanted to choose to believe him, but she still cautiously reminded him, the 4 evil spirits are definitely not as simple as they seem on the surface. Mother, if I can't do it in half a year's time, it won't be too late for you to make a move then. Yi Hao could also tell that his mother didn't believe him. But he also knew that no matter how he explained, it would be useless. Only if he could do it would it be the truth. All right then. Imperial Aunt Tang didn't insist after hearing Yi Hao's words. Moreover, it wouldn't be easy for her to deal with the 4 evil spirits in a short period of time. She also needed time to prepare. 4 evil spirits, you will die in half a year's time. Imperial Aunt Tang's eyes shone with intense murderous intent. Although the murderous intent in his mother's eyes wasn't directed at him, Yi Hao still felt a chill in his heart. This was the aura that a superior had cultivated over a long period of time. Although he also had this aura, it was still slightly lacking compared to his mother's. Mother, I will take my leave first. Yi Hao looked at Imperial Aunt Tang and said with reluctance in his eyes. Although he also wanted to spend more time with his mother, he still had many things to do. Even his own cultivation was still a long way off. He was only a 2nd-level martial sage. Although he could fight against a martial god, he was still far from being a martial god. Moreover, there were still 2 origin source fragments. Up until now, he still had no clue about them. Imperial Aunt Tang really wanted to keep Yi Hao by her side now. However, she also knew that the current situation didn't allow her to do so. At the very least, she was still unable to control the Purple Sky God Kingdom. The Purple Sky God Emperor had always been eyeing her covetously. If the Purple Sky God Emperor got hold of her weakness now, she might lose everything. Moreover, the Golden Dragon couldn't always hide in her mother's embrace. If she kept Yi Hao by her side, it would only hinder Yi Hao's growth. In the Purple Sky God Kingdom's palace. Let me ask you, where is Aunt Tang? At this moment, outside Imperial Aunt Tang's courtyard, Zi Xing asked with a cold expression. First Princess, Imperial Aunt Tang is cultivating. It is not suitable for her to see anyone at this time. A female guard in tight clothes stopped her. Is she really cultivating or is she not in the palace? The attendant beside Zi Xing asked in a strange tone. Your Highness First Princess, what do you mean by this? The female guard frowned. Slap. Chapter 586. Zi Xing slapped the guard's face and was about to barge in. She had received news today that her aunt might have left the palace. There was definitely something wrong with her sudden departure. If she could find something that could be used against her, it would definitely be good news for Purple Heaven God Emperor. Therefore, when she saw the guards stop her, she also sensed that something was wrong. She did not want to delay. First Princess, you can't. Seeing the First Princess barging in, the female guard could no longer care about the pain on her face and anxiously stopped her. Whoever dares to stop me will die. Zi Xing said rudely, and the guards behind her all drew their weapons. When the female guard saw this scene, she was secretly anxious, but there was nothing she could do. Xing temper is getting worse. You even dare to barge into my palace. At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly came from the depths of the courtyard. Then, her aunt's cold voice sounded. Hearing this voice, Zi Xing's face turned pale. The guards behind Zi Xing were even worse. They were all sent flying. They scrambled to their feet in a panic and knelt on the ground, trembling. Spare us, Aunt, spare us, spare us. The guards immediately knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. After all, they dared to barge into her aunt's residence. Zi Xing might be fine, but to them it was a death sentence. When the female guard who was beaten heard her aunt's voice, the worry in the corner of her eyes immediately dissipated, and was replaced by a smug look. Men, suppress them. Her aunt did not care about their pleas. She was in a good mood when she saw her son, but she did not expect her backyard to almost catch fire. This was intolerable. She had to make an example out of them and teach Purple Heaven God Emperor a lesson. And these guards were the best chickens. Royal Aunt, please spare us. Hearing the royal aunt's words, the group of guards begged for mercy with pale faces. How is this possible? How could she be in the palace? Zixing-er's mind kept thinking. She felt very upset. Zixing-er was thinking of a solution. If she did not have a good answer, it would be troublesome this time. After all, she was too reckless this time. She actually barged into her aunt's courtyard. This was equivalent to directly falling out with her aunt. All the guards were dragged away, leaving Zixing-er alone in the courtyard. At this moment, her head was covered in cold sweat. She swore that she would tear the person who told her the news into pieces. Instantly, the entire courtyard fell into silence. Xing-er, this king needs a reasonable explanation. Are you looking down on this king? The imperial aunt's cold voice rang out again. Aunt, I know I was wrong. I wouldn't dare. Zixing-er wanted to resist her aunt's aura, but it was futile in the end. She could not hold on any longer and could only kneel on the ground. The smile that had appeared at the corner of Zixing-er's eyes immediately disappeared and turned into astonishment. She could not believe that such unyielding words had come out from her imperial aunt's mouth. What was going on? Was she going to shed all pretense of cordiality? The guards also looked troubled. They did not expect that imperial aunt would not even give face to the Purple Heaven Divine Emperor. They all had a feeling that the Purple Heaven Divine Kingdom was about to change. The group of guards did not dare to stay any longer. They had to quickly report the news to the Purple Heaven Divine Emperor. At this moment, Zixing-er's heart was filled with resentment. However, she was afraid of being discovered by imperial aunt, so she could only pretend to be remorseful and lower her head. What? How dare she? Even now, she doesn't put me in her eyes? In the Purple Heaven Divine Palace, the Purple Heaven Divine Emperor heard the guards report and instantly slammed the table and stood up. She felt like she was about to explode from anger. She had originally wanted Zixing-er to find something on imperial aunt. She was very unhappy that she did not manage to do so. However, she did not expect imperial aunt to kill her follower and make Zixing-er kneel in the courtyard. This directly caused many people to talk about it. This made her feel that imperial aunt was slapping her in the face. However, there was nothing she could do. Who asked Zixing-er to barge in? She was in the wrong. There was no other way. The entire Purple Heaven Divine Kingdom knew that Zixing-er was one of them. They could not let Zixing-er kneel in front of imperial aunt. That would be too embarrassing. Chapter 587. Are you trying to intimidate me? The Purple Sky Supreme God Emperor's voice was so cold that the air around them froze. The guards all shuddered when they heard the Purple Sky Supreme God Emperor's words. However, the Purple Sky Supreme God Emperor would never put down her dignity to beg her aunt. If she did that, it would mean that she was inferior to her aunt. That wasn't the most important thing. What was important was that if she went to take Zixing-er back, her aunt would take the opportunity to show her power. She would say that Zixing-er had broken into her aunt's palace because of her. That would definitely bring about negative effect. However, she had to take Zixing-er back because the entire world knew that she was the one who had been groomed by her. Those damn guards. Why haven't I heard anything from them yet? The Purple Sky Supreme God Emperor still didn't know that those golden warriors had been subdued by Yi Hao. She was still fantasizing about how the golden warriors would kill Yi Hao and give her aunt a painful blow. She wanted to see if her aunt could still be so arrogant. Your Majesty, there's news from your aunt. Just as the Purple Sky Supreme God Emperor was still troubled, a guard suddenly came in to report. What did she say? The purple sky supreme god emperor interrupted her thoughts and asked in a low voice. She knew that her aunt had a motive for doing this. She said that she wants to stop the 4 evil spirits from surrounding the Fire Dragon Empire. The guard quickly said. Humph, so she wants to protect her son's faction. Wishful thinking. The purple sky supreme god emperor huffed coldly. She also said that as long as your majesty orders the 4 evil spirits not to touch the Fire Dragon Empire for half a year, she will send the first princess back and hand over Husei Fort. The purple sky supreme god emperor's eyes flashed when she heard the guard's words. She was clearly moved. She really said that she will hand over Husei Fort. Husei Fort was one of the most important forts of the purple sky supreme god emperor. It was also a treasured place where the purple sky supreme god emperor cultivated his elite. Husei Fort had always been fought over by her aunt. If she could obtain Amber Fort, her forces would increase by at least 10%. This made it impossible for her not to be moved. Moreover, the price was only to delay the 4 evil spirits' attack on the Fire Dragon Empire by half a year. This price was as good as nothing. She only needed to say a word. Furthermore, she did not believe that the Fire Dragon Empire would be able to come up with a way to withstand the attacks of the 4 evil spirits within half a year. Furthermore, the golden-armored warriors that he had sent might have already killed Yi Hao by now. Who knew? All right, we'll allow it. Master, are we really going to give Husei Fort to the Purple Heaven Divine Emperor? The female guard asked reluctantly when she saw Zi Xing being taken away. It's just a fortress, the imperial aunt said with a smile. But if Master does this, the lords who support Master will definitely be displeased. After all, Husei Fort is almost in our hands. We'll have the initiative now, the female guard said worriedly with an unwilling expression. The imperial aunt did not blame her when she heard the female guard's words. This female guard was her trusted aide, and what she said was true. However, in order to fulfill her promise to Yi Hao, she could only give up a portion of the benefit. Moreover, this matter would only be effective if the Purple Heaven Divine Emperor was involved. After all, she had not yet gained control of the Purple Heaven Divine Kingdom. The 4 evil spirits might give her face, but if the Purple Heaven Divine Emperor were to interfere, then it would be hard to say. Therefore, to be safe, she could only let the Purple Heaven Divine Emperor do it. Of course, the price to pay for doing so would be disastrous. Just the group of people who supported him might be shaken because of this incident. However, as long as it was for Yi Hao, she would not regret anything. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. What surprised everyone was that the 4 evil spirits had been preparing for this half a year, but they did not attack the Fire Dragon Empire. The Fire Dragon Empire also did not run away. Just when everyone thought that things would return to normal, the 4 evil spirits suddenly sent out their troops. A majestic army of 1 billion people. The countries that they passed by all offered them food. Everyone was looking forward to seeing what would happen after half a year of delay. Yi Hao had not been idle during this half a year. Until now, he had a total of 30 doppelgangers. Each doppelganger had reached the peak of the martial saint realm. However, his only regret was that he had not been able to find any clues about the remaining 2 origin fragments. At this moment, he had no choice but to give up on his search. The army camp was almost finished upgrading. Yi Hao immediately rushed to the army camp. The current army camp was different from before. Countless illusory arrays had been set up all around. At the same time, Yi Hao had sent a large number of ancient mutated beasts to guard it. He was afraid that the secret of the army camp would be exposed. After all, this was an existence that could summon experts. If this were to spread, it would probably become the target of everyone's attacks. Yi Hao looked nervously at the 4 camps in front of him. They were the cavalry camp, the archer camp, the spear camp, and the big sword camp. At this moment, the battlefield area of the 4 camps was thousands of times larger than before. Moreover, there was a layer of fog above the camps, making it difficult to see clearly. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for upgrading the cavalry camp. Current level, divine level. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for upgrading the archer camp. Current level, divine level. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for upgrading the spear camp. Current level, divine level. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for upgrading the big sword camp. Current level, divine level. It's finally done. Hearing the continuous notifications from the system, Yi Hao was overjoyed. He had waited bitterly for half a year. Finally, this moment had arrived. Yi Hao looked at the 4 camps in front of him. Each camp was 100 meters tall and occupied a radius of 10,000 meters. It looked very majestic. I can finally summon the martial god soldiers. Looking at the 4 camps in front of him, Yi Hao rubbed his hands. System, how many resources do I need to exchange for a divine level soldier? I need 1 million tons of wood, 1 million tons of stone, and 1 million tons of food. Of course, this is the amount of the lowest level of resources. As the level of the resources increases, the corresponding decrease will be made. Hearing the system's explanation, Yi Hao instantly understood. It meant that the 100 tons of food was the most ordinary food. In the world of 10,000 countries, food was also divided into different levels. Because of different regions, the food produced by martial arts was also different. The higher the level of the region, the higher the food produced. It was the same for wood and stone. System, help me calculate how many resources I have. Yi Hao immediately asked the system. System is calculating, please wait a moment. To be honest, Yi Hao was also a little nervous. How many resources he had was related to how many soldiers he could summon. The more soldiers he could summon, the greater his chances of winning. Chapter 588. Ding dong, host has 2.7 billion tons of grain, 3.5 billion tons of stone, 2.3 billion tons of grain. Hearing the system's statistics, Yi Hao was still a little shocked. He didn't expect himself to have collected so many resources. Of course, most of it was the efforts of those families. System, help me calculate how many martial gods I can summon if I summon all of them. According to the lowest amount of grain, host can exchange for 2,300 martial gods. Although Yi Hao was already prepared, he still sucked in a breath of cold air when he heard this number. That was 2,300 martial gods, and the 4 evil spirits had only sent a little more than 1,000 martial gods. Although Yi Hao was secretly happy, he quickly returned to normal. After all, the 4 evil spirits still had 100,000 martial saints, and they couldn't be underestimated. Moreover, there were a total of 1 billion martial kings among the ordinary soldiers. Since that was the case, Yi Hao wouldn't exchange all of them for martial gods. Although martial gods were strong, they couldn't fight against 100 martial saints in an instant. System, how many resources do I need to exchange for martial saints? Yi Hao immediately asked. 100,000 of each type of resource. The system immediately replied. I want to exchange for 100,000 martial saints. Yi Hao thought for a moment and immediately made up his mind. With 100,000 martial saints and his 20,000 ancient beasts, the 100,000 martial saints of the 4 evil spirits wouldn't be a problem at all. Congratulations to host for obtaining 1 billion stone resources, 1 billion wood resources, and 1 billion food resources. Ding dong! Congratulations to host for successfully exchanging. Just as the system's voice fell, soldiers walked out of the 4 barracks in an orderly manner. Yi Hao immediately checked the soldiers' auras. Indeed, they were all martial saint. Moreover, the system was very fair, exchanging for 25,000 of each type of soldier. Looking at the 100,000 soldiers, Yi Hao's blood was instantly ignited. This was what an emperor should have. and his hegemony of unifying the 10,000 countries continent was finally about to take an important step. And the leaders of the holy empires, the four evil spirits, were the first stepping stone of the Fire Dragon Empire's conquest. System: exchange my remaining resources for Martial God Realm Expert. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for obtaining 325 archers, congratulations to the host for obtaining 325 broadsword soldiers, congratulations to the host for obtaining 325 spear soldiers, congratulations to the host for obtaining 325 cavalry soldiers. Then, soldiers with even more powerful auras walked out of the forebarrack, and Yi Hao's food resources were also declared exhausted. When he saw 1,300 martial divinity warriors and 100,000 martial sage warriors, Yi Hao was filled with anticipation for the upcoming battle. Yi Hao would never let the flames of war burn on the land of the Fire Dragon Empire, and the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty was the best battlefield. At this moment, the Fire Dragon Empire's combat power had completely crushed the four evil spirits. Although they couldn't compare to the four evil spirits in terms of ordinary soldiers. However, in a war of this level, ordinary soldiers were nothing more than cannon fodder. In the end, the deciding factor was the number of experts, and the four evil spirits had sent out 1,000 martial gods, while Yi Hao had 1,300 martial gods. They would definitely crush the four evil spirits' martial god. The four evil spirits had 100,000 martial sage warriors, while Yi Hao also had 100,000 martial sage warriors and 20,000 ancient exotic beasts. Therefore, no matter if it was martial sage warriors or martial gods, they far outnumbered the four evil spirits. Moreover, the soldiers summoned through the four barracks would have even more combat experience. That soldier's mind was filled with demonic battle experience. Soldiers, follow me to battle. Yi Hao pulled out his sword and jumped onto the dragon's body, pointing his sword at the sky. Roar! 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 The Flame Dragon Empire had also gathered 1 billion ordinary soldiers, and they charged toward the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty in a mighty array. As for the reason why Yi Hao brought 1 billion ordinary soldiers, it was purely to fool others. After all, the four evil spirits estimated that it would take at least half a month to reach the Fire Dragon Empire. And those martial gods and martial saints soldiers couldn't be exposed too early. Otherwise, the four evil spirits would be on guard. Yi Hao wanted to catch them off guard and destroy the four evil spirits. At this moment, the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty was dumbfounded. What did you say? The Fire Dragon Empire is marching toward us? Are you sure? Bai Xing Holy Emperor asked in shock when he heard the spy's report. He couldn't figure it out. The four evil spirits were attacking Yi Hao. Why didn't Yi Hao prepare to die and attack him? Your Majesty, it's true. A total of 1 billion soldiers are coming toward us. Your Majesty, it seems that the Fire Dragon Empire wants to put the battlefield on our land. After hearing the spy's report, an official said anxiously, "What a vicious Fire Dragon Empire! Don't blame me for being merciless." Bai Xing Holy Emperor sneered with a murderous look. Your Majesty, do you have a backup plan? Everyone's eyes lit up. Bai Xing Holy Emperor's words were full of confidence. Take this as a token of my allegiance to the four evil spirits. Bai Xing Holy Emperor made up his mind. One had to know that he hadn't been idle for the past half a year. Nearly 100 elites from the royal family were already under his control. He had mobilized a total of 100,000 elite soldiers. He couldn't help but sigh at the resources of these imperial forces. That wasn't all. He had also mobilized the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty's trump card and gathered the elites of the people. Thus, in the past half a year, he had already created a trump card division in his hand. Everyone, follow me, Bai Xing Holy Emperor said with a smile. He led the way out of the hall. All the officials followed him out. Everyone was stunned when they saw the scene outside the hall and in the square. There were 1 million martial honorables. Every soldier's cultivation was above that of a martial honorable. All the officials looked at Bai Xing Holy Emperor's back in shock. They didn't know when Bai Xing Holy Emperor had created this army of kings. Not to mention anything else, even 10,000 martial saints alone would not be a match for these 1,000,000 martial exalt. Your Majesty is mighty. We pledge our lives to follow you. Looking at the 1,000,000-strong army in front of them, although it was unlikely that they could defeat the Flame Dragon Empire, they would not be as helpless as they had thought before. The army of 1,000,000 would be a big hindrance to the Fire Dragon Empire. Your duty is to keep the Fire Dragon Empire out of the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty and wait for the arrival of the 4 evil spirits. Are you confident? Bai Xing Holy Emperor said boldly. Yes, yes, yes. The 1,000,000 martial honorables roared. Chapter 589. Under Saint Emperor Bai Xing's command, the 1,000,000 soldiers charged toward Yan Long's army like arrows. They wanted to stop the Fire Dragon Empire before the 4 evil spirits arrived. Saint Emperor Bai Xing was looking forward to the 1,000,000 soldiers. He might be able to make a name for himself this time. Alliance Master, the Fire Dragon Empire and the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty are fighting. A scout reported to the East Sha God in the camp of the 4 evil spirits. A dogfight, interesting. The East Sha God stroked his beard and laughed. He had waited for this day for half a year. He had been drooling over the Fire Dragon Empire's 3,000,000 dragon power points for a long time. What did the Fire Dragon Empire have to do to have 3,000,000 dragon power points? The 3,000,000 dragon power points were given to him for free, waiting for him to take them. The East Sha God had obviously regarded the Fire Dragon Empire's dragon power as his own. After all, he had sent people to investigate. The only thing the Flame Dragon Empire could take out was the 20,000 primordial mutant beasts. However, he did not care about the 20,000 ancient strange beasts at all because he had 100,000 martial sages. Moreover, he had 1,000 martial sages. He could ask the Fire Dragon Empire what they had to fight with him. The East Sha God's eyes shone. He did not care about the small Fire Dragon Empire. After all, it was a country of a young boy. They only knew how to show off and did not know that the tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. However, he treated the Fire Dragon Empire as his stepping stone. He might be able to use this opportunity to break the pattern of the 10,000 countries continent and become one of the divine countries. Order all experts above the martial sage realm to advance. The East Sha God ordered. A country like the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty was also a good existence. The East Sha God had already thought of taking it as his own. I don't know if my son can do it. In the palace of the Purple Heaven Divine Kingdom, the imperial ant looked into the distance with a complicated expression. Half a year had passed. Although she had stabilized the imperial court, her own power was still suppressed by the Purple Heaven Divine Emperor. What she was most concerned about now was how Yi Hao would be able to withstand the attack of the 4 evil spirits. She had originally wanted to send reinforcements, but the Purple Heaven Divine Emperor had long anticipated her thoughts. Recently, he had been constantly making small moves. The royal ant knew that the Purple Heaven Supreme God was holding her back so that she could not attack. Now, she could only pray that Yi Hao would be able to get through this. Moreover, she had already thought about it. If Yi Hao could get through this, then everything would be fine. However, if the 4 evil spirits really destroyed the Fire Dragon Empire, then she would make the 4 evil spirits accompany the Fire Dragon Empire to the grave. Xing how is the matter I asked you to do? The Purple Heaven Divine Emperor asked in the Purple Heaven Divine Palace. Xing immediately smiled and replied, Don't worry, Father. I have already sent people to hold back Ant according to your orders. She definitely won't be able to help the Fire Dragon Empire now. Good. Now we just need to wait for the Fire Dragon Empire to be destroyed and give her a painful blow. Then, it will be time for me to eliminate her. Although the purple heaven supreme god's voice did not sound like a man's or a woman's, it was different this time. There was a trace of anticipation and joy in his voice. Don't worry, Father. The 4 evil spirits have sent out 100,000 martial sages and 1,000 martial gods. This time, the Fire Dragon Empire will definitely not be able to escape, Zi Xing said happily. It's a pity that I won't be the one to destroy the Fire Dragon Empire with my own hands. She had suffered at the hands of Yi Hao. She still could not forget it. If she had the chance, she would definitely kill Yi Hao with her own hands. Xing I will give you a decree. Come closer. Your Majesty, there is a group of troops coming from the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty. They are attacking us quickly. Yi Hao sat on the back of the giant dragon. As the army advanced, a spy came back to report. Who are they? How many are they? How strong are they? Yi Hao was not flustered at all. He asked calmly. They are from the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty. There are about 1 million of them. They are all martial honorables, the spy quickly replied. Good. When Yi Hao heard the spy's words, he shouted happily. He had a grudge against the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty. When he had killed Bai Yi, the grudge had been formed. From then on, he was destined to have an irreconcilable feud with the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty. Moreover, the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty had secretly gathered all the families that had betrayed him. They had really thought that they had done it secretly. If not, he would have heard about it long ago. Otherwise, he would not have set the battlefield on the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty's territory. His goal was to destroy the Bai Xing Dynasty as well. God's Battalion, Saints Battalion, listen up. Yi Hao ordered. The God's Battalion and Saints Battalion were the names that Yi Hao had given to the God's Battalion and Saints Battalion. He wanted to use the God's Battalion and Saints Battalion to conquer the world. Go and destroy the enemy in front of us. Leave no one alive. Kill. As soon as Yi Hao gave the order, powerful auras shot up to the sky. There were 1,300 God's Battalion and 120,000 Saints Battalion, and they rushed toward the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty. Commander, there is a group of soldiers from the Fire Dragon Empire in front of us. At that moment, a spy in the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty's army reported to the commander. Good. Let them know the power of our holy sovereign army. Get ready to fight. The commander of the army said in high spirits as he drew his sword. Kill, kill, kill. The army let out a deafening roar. Each of them was filled with fighting spirit. They were the trump cards of the Bai Xing Holy Dynasty. They had been hidden for a long time. Today was the day they would become famous. The Fire Dragon Empire was their whetstone. Boom, boom, boom. What's that sound? Suddenly, rumbling sounds could be heard, and the million-man commanders could not help but frown. Commander, look. They are so fast. A spy said in surprise. Martial sages. Martial gods. The commander's heart skipped a beat when he sensed the aura coming from the figures. Get ready, Commander, we are surrounded. There are experts all around us. Before the commander could say anything, a few soldiers rushed over and shouted anxiously. What? How many experts are there? The commander was shocked. He had not expected the Fire Dragon Empire to be so fast. There are at least 100,000 martial saints. A scout said with a bitter look on his face. The commander trembled when he heard the spy's words. Then, he murmured, It's over. Why are there so many experts? Commander, what should we do? Let's fight them. A soldier said. What's the use of fighting them? That's courting death. I think we have been tricked by the Bai Xing Holy Emperor. Let our brothers escape. It's up to fate whether we can survive or not. Chapter 590. Battle cries rang out. The two sides finally clashed, and the million-strong army was no match for them. They were like children in front of 100,000 martial sages. They had no chance of slowing down. A martial sage could easily kill 4 or 5 martial venerables. As for the martial gods, there was no need to mention them. Every time they attacked, they would take the lives of dozens of people. After all, the disparity in strength was too great, and the Baixing Holy Dynasty did not have the upper hand in terms of numbers. If the Baixing Holy Dynasty had 10 million martial venerables, they might have been able to hold on a little longer. However, this 1 million was really not enough to look at. The battle did not last long, and it ended amidst pleas and screams. The million-strong army that the Baixing Holy Dynasty had hidden for a long time was slaughtered. As for the people of the Fire Dragon Empire, none of them were injured, let alone dead. The Fire Dragon Empire had won the first battle, and they had not lost a single soldier. Yi Hao was delighted when he heard the report from his subordinate. All troops, attack and destroy the Baixing Holy Dynasty. Treat it as an appetizer before the battle. Yi Hao raised his arm and shouted. He had never shown mercy to his enemies. Since the Baixing Holy Dynasty had lost its million-strong army, there was no need for the Baixing Holy Dynasty to exist. Following Yi Hao's order, the Saint and God battalions charged toward the Baixing Holy Dynasty. Your Majesty, what's the matter? Saint Emperor Bai raised an eyebrow. Saint Emperor Bai's face was still filled with joy. He was holding a banquet with the civil and military officials to celebrate. He believed that with the million-strong army, they would definitely win the first battle. Furthermore, he was still worried that the Flame Dragon Empire had not experienced such a situation before. If they were defeated by his million-strong army, then it would not be interesting at all. Is there any good news? Hurry up and tell us about it. I estimate that His Majesty's million-man army has already defeated the Yen Dragon Empire. Your Majesty is mighty, Your Majesty is domineering. The civil and military officials raised their hands and congratulated him. Seeing the officials talking to themselves, the spy did not have the heart to interrupt, but he still pleaded. Your Majesty, our million-strong army has been wiped out. The entire army was annihilated. Are you joking with me? The smile on Saint Emperor Bai's face disappeared in an instant. Even the wine glass in his hand, which was already at the edge of his mouth, fell directly onto the table. Bai Xingqiao stared at the spy and begged him. He wanted the spy to tell him that he was lying. The entire hall instantly quieted down. Therefore, the ministers looked at the Baixing sacred dynasty strangely. They could feel the awkwardness in the air. Saint Bai and Saint Emperor's kind words were still ringing in their ears. But reality was cruel. How long had it been? They thought that the war hadn't even started, but the war was already over. Let me ask you, how is the damage done to the Fire Dragon Empire? Saint Emperor Bai asked, unwilling to give up. He did not believe that Yi Hao could destroy his million-strong army without expending a single soldier. Your Majesty, the Fire Dragon Empire seems to be unharmed, the spy said carefully. He knew that Saint Emperor Bai would not be able to accept the news. He might even fly into a rage. What? Bang! Saint Emperor Bai's eyes widened as he roared. The power in his body shattered the table in front of him. Your Majesty, please calm down. The ministers immediately knelt and said, How did the Fire Dragon Empire manage to kill my million-strong army and remain unharmed? Saint Emperor Bai's eyes flashed with a cold light. Not good, Your Majesty. Countless experts have appeared in our country. Many cities have fallen. Groups of spies immediately came in to report. A group of experts? Are they from the Fire Dragon Empire? Saint Emperor Bai asked in a low voice. The civil and military officials all pricked up their ears. Yes. The spies' words were not surprising. How many experts do they have? What are their realms? Who can tell me? Saint Emperor Bai roared. He had painstakingly prepared for so long. He had never thought of defeating the Fire Dragon Empire. But he had to create some trouble for the Fire Dragon Empire. And no matter what, he had to win the first battle. But now, he had not even hurt a single person from the Fire Dragon Empire. His trump card, his million-strong army, had been destroyed. Even now, he still found it hard to believe that his million-man army had been wiped out. It sounded like a dream. There are at least 100,000 martial sages, one of the spies said. The entire imperial court was in an uproar again. They all looked at each other and saw shock and fear in each other's eyes. After all, it was not 100,000 random martial sages, but 100,000 martial sages. Impossible. How could the Fire Dragon Empire have so many martial sages? The four evil spirits are only SOSO. Saint Emperor Bai said in disbelief. After all, the four evil spirits were the leaders of all the sacred dynasties. They had stood tall in the myriad kingdom continent for tens of thousands of years. And it was the largest dynasty under the four divine kingdoms. They were truly an existence that could cover the sky with one hand. Forces weaker than them did not dare to provoke them. Even the four divine kingdoms, which were stronger than them, had to give them some face. Even with such an existence, there were only 100,000 martial sages in this expedition. This number had already shocked the myriad kingdom continent. And this also made more forces want to submit to the four evil spirits. Because the 100,000 martial sages made them feel fearful. With 100,000 martial sages, there was probably no country under the divine kingdoms that could provoke the four evil spirits. Everyone was ridiculing the Fire Dragon Empire for overestimating themselves. Not only did they not run away when surrounded by the four evil spirits, they even dared to start a war. Did they really think that the 1,000 martial gods and 100,000 martial sages were pushovers? In fact, not to mention others, even Saint Emperor Bai had ridiculed Yi Hao. But now, Saint Emperor Bai finally understood why the Fire Dragon Empire dared to start a war. How laughable his thoughts were. Yi Hao dared to start a war because the Fire Dragon Empire also had 100,000 martial sages. This was something that no one would have thought of. Saint Emperor Bai was extremely curious. Where did the Fire Dragon Empire find so many experts? After all, martial sages were definitely not cabbages in the myriad kingdom continent. No matter which martial sage it was, they would need a lot of resources, talent, and time to accumulate. Even the four evil spirits had accumulated so many martial sages. Although they looked impressive on the surface, they had paid countless hardships behind the scenes. But with the four evil spirits' qualifications, it was reasonable for them to bring out so many martial sages. But the Fire Dragon Empire was different. It was a fledgling country. They had already stolen the limelight in the Myriad Kingdom ceremony. That could be attributed to luck. Chapter 591. Men, report the news to the four evil spirits. Saint Emperor Bai looked anxious. He could only pin his hopes on the four evil spirit. The Bai Xing dynasty was the Bai family's blood, sweat, and tears. He could not bear to see it destroyed. If the four evil spirits could arrive in time, the Bai Xing dynasty might be saved. I'm afraid it's too late. Saint Emperor Bai had just finished speaking when another voice came from outside the hall. When the officials heard the voice, they looked outside the hall warily. Who is outside the hall? Saint Emperor Bai's face tensed up when he heard the voice outside the hall. He immediately shouted, "Where are the Imperial Guards? Protect the Emperor!" Saint Emperor Bai felt uneasy and immediately summoned the Imperial Guards. The Imperial Guards were the elites of the Bai Xing dynasty. They were made up of 100 martial sages and 10 martial gods. These martial sages had been through life and death situations. They were all experts who could fight against 2 or even 3 people at the same time. Furthermore, the equipment on his body was specially forged. These Imperial Guards were definitely capable of fighting twice or even thrice the number of opponents of the same level. At this critical moment, Saint Bai's first thought was the Imperial Guards. However, no one responded to him after he shouted. The civil and military officials in the hall all took out their weapons and warily looked outside. Where are the Imperial Guards? Protect me! Seeing that no one was paying any attention to him, Sage Emperor Bai coldly shouted once more. You must be looking for them. Bang! 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 As soon as the voice outside the door fell, a golden figure shot into the hall. It's the Imperial Guards! It's over. The Imperial Guards are all dead. How can it be? There's no movement at all. How could the Imperial Guards be sacrificed? The officials discussed anxiously with fear in their eyes. Many of the ministers began to tremble uncontrollably. That was the fear of death. After all, they knew that the Imperial Guards of the Baixing dynasty were powerful and terrifying. However, all the corpses of the Imperial Guards were lying in the hall. This could only mean that the enemy outside the hall was more powerful and terrifying than the Imperial Guards. Suddenly, a figure walked in from outside the hall. Everyone's gaze immediately gathered on that figure. To everyone's surprise, the newcomer was a young man wearing a platinum dragon robe. The young man's every movement was filled with confidence and dominance. The young man's sharp gaze swept across the officials in the hall, but no one dared to look him in the eye. That's right, it was Yi Hao. You are young Emperor Yanlong? Saint Emperor Bai stared at Yi Hao, his eyes filled with killing intent and hatred. Vengeance for his son's death immediately filled Saint Emperor Bai's heart. Yi Hao didn't say anything. He looked at Saint Bai and Saint Emperor quietly. Back then, he had almost died at the hands of Bai Wu because of Saint Bai's orders. Back then, he had sworn to destroy the Baixing holy dynasty. Plop! At this moment, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. Even Yi Hao was dumbfounded. He originally thought that Saint Bai and Saint Emperor would fight him to the death. Instead, Saint Emperor Bai stood up from his dragon throne and knelt on the ground. The jaws of the civil and military officials dropped to the ground. What was going on? Was this the same Saint Emperor Bai that they knew, who was high above the masses and held the power of life and death in his hands? Young Emperor Yanlong, I've heard so much about you. I finally get to meet you today, Saint Emperor Bai said with a fawning expression. Everyone almost vomited at the sight of Saint Bai and Saint Emperor. They couldn't reconcile the Saint Emperor Bai in front of them with the unsmiling Saint Emperor Bai of the past. This was more than just a completely different person. The current Saint Emperor Bai was completely shameless and had no regard for his reputation at all. He actually knelt in front of a young man who was so much younger than him in his own court, and with a fawning expression. They all wondered if Saint Emperor Bai was ignoring them. Then I'd like to hear an explanation for the million pieces of trash. Yi Hao didn't know what Saint Emperor Bai was up to, but he still asked with a murderous look in his eyes. He didn't believe that Saint Emperor Bai, the emperor of a sacred dynasty, had a grudge against him for killing his son. Even if he had changed, he couldn't have changed so quickly and so completely. Saint Emperor Bai didn't feel good to hear that the million men he'd painstakingly trained had become trash in Yi Hao's mouth. Saint Emperor Bai felt a pang of pain at the thought of his million men. After all, they were his blood, sweat, and tears. Saint Emperor Bai lowered his head, the murderous look in his eyes obvious. But he still lifted his head and said with a smile, "Young Emperor Yanlong, please understand. That has nothing to do with me." "Nothing to do with you?" Yi Hao raised an eyebrow and looked at Saint Emperor Bai with interest. He'd like to see what other excuses Saint Emperor Bai could come up with. Saint Emperor Bai's eyes darted around as he tried to think of a solution. Suddenly, Saint Emperor Bai's eyes lit up. He pointed at the officials and said, "It's them. They misled me and made me make the wrong decision." The officials looked at Saint Emperor Bai in shock. They couldn't believe their ears. They couldn't believe that Saint Emperor Bai would push the blame to them at such a critical moment. "Saint Emperor Bai, you're so shameless. We've been loyal to you, but you've harmed us like this. One of the generals couldn't stand it anymore. He pointed at Saint Emperor Bai and scolded him. "How dare you scold me?" Saint Emperor Bai's face changed when he heard the general's words. He blew his beard and glared at him. "So what if I'm scolding you? You're the emperor of a sacred dynasty, but you're kneeling on the ground like a dog. Don't you have any shame? You're a disgrace to the sacred dynasty, a disgrace to all the previous emperors." Since they'd fallen out, the general didn't hold back anymore. "That's right. I don't know how our sacred dynasty ended up in the hands of a weak and incapable emperor like you. It's all our fault for being so blind. We've been loyal to you for so long." The civil and military officials spoke one after another, their faces filled with anger. You traitors! The Baixing Holy Dynasty was infuriated when he was scolded by so many of his officials, and they didn't give him any face. He felt like his lungs were about to explode. If he could, he'd kill these people immediately. "Young Emperor Yanlong, did you see that? They don't care about me at all. They're the ones who instigated this." Saint Emperor Bai looked mad. Smack! 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 Chapter 592. Men, report the news to the 4 evil spirits. Saint Emperor Bai looked anxious. He could only pin his hopes on the 4 evil spirit. The Baixing dynasty was the Bai family's blood, sweat, and tears. He could not bear to see it destroyed. If the 4 evil spirits could arrive in time, the Baixing dynasty might be saved. "I'm afraid it's too late." Saint Emperor Bai had just finished speaking when another voice came from outside the hall. When the officials heard the voice, they looked outside the hall warily. "Who is outside the hall?" Saint Emperor Bai's face tensed up when he heard the voice outside the hall. He immediately shouted, "Where are the Imperial Guards? Protect the Emperor!" Saint Emperor Bai felt uneasy and immediately summoned the Imperial Guards. The Imperial Guards were the elites of the Baixing dynasty. They were formed by 100 martial sages and 10 martial gods. These martial sages had been through life and death situations. They were all experts who could fight against 2 or even 3 people at the same time. Furthermore, the equipment on his body was specially forged. These Imperial Guards were definitely capable of fighting twice or even thrice the number of opponents of the same level. At this critical moment, Saint Bai's first thought was the Imperial Guards. However, no one responded to him after he shouted. The civil and military officials in the hall all took out their weapons and warily looked outside. "Where are the Imperial Guards? Protect me!" Seeing that no one was paying any attention to him, Sage Emperor Bai coldly shouted once more. "You are looking for them, right?" Bang! 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 As soon as the voice outside the door fell, a golden figure shot into the hall. "Those are the Imperial Guards!" "Oh no, the Imperial Guards are all dead. How is that possible? There is no movement at all. How could the Imperial Guards be sacrificed?" The officials discussed anxiously with fear in their eyes. Many of the ministers began to tremble uncontrollably. That was the fear of death. After all, they knew how powerful and terrifying the Imperial Guards were. However, all the Imperial Guards' corpses were lying in the hall. This could only mean that the enemy outside the hall was more powerful and terrifying than the Imperial Guards. Suddenly, a figure walked in from outside the hall. Everyone's gaze immediately gathered on that figure. To everyone's surprise, the newcomer was a young man wearing a platinum dragon robe. The young man's every movement was filled with confidence and dominance. The young man's sharp gaze swept across the officials in the hall, but no one dared to look him in the eye. That's right, it was Yi Hao. "You are young Emperor Yanlong?" Saint Emperor Bai stared at Yi Hao, his eyes filled with killing intent and hatred. Vengeance for his son's death immediately filled Saint Emperor Bai's heart. Yi Hao didn't say anything. He looked at Saint Bai and Saint Emperor quietly. Back then, he had almost died at the hands of Bai Wu because of Saint Bai's orders. Back then, He had sworn to destroy the Bai Xing holy dynasty. Plop! At this moment, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. Even Yi Hao was dumbfounded. He originally thought that Saint Bai and Saint Emperor would fight him to the death. Instead, Saint Emperor Bai stood up from his dragon throne and knelt on the ground. The jaws of the civil and military officials dropped to the ground. What was going on? Was this the same Saint Emperor Bai that they knew, who was high above the masses and held the power of life and death in his hands? Young Emperor Yanlong, I've heard so much about you. I finally get to meet you today, Saint Emperor Bai said with a fawning expression. Everyone almost vomited at the sight of Saint Emperor Bai's behavior. They couldn't reconcile the Saint Emperor Bai in front of them with the unsmiling Saint Emperor Bai of the past. This was more than just a completely different person. The current Saint Emperor Bai was completely shameless and had no regard for his reputation at all. How could he kneel in front of a young man who was so much younger than him in his own court? They all wondered if Saint Emperor Bai was ignoring them. Then I'd like to hear an explanation for the million pieces of trash. Yi Hao didn't know what Saint Emperor Bai was up to, but he still asked with a murderous look in his eyes. He didn't believe that Saint Emperor Bai, the emperor of a sacred dynasty, had a grudge against him for killing his son. Even if he had changed, he couldn't have changed so quickly and so completely. Saint Emperor Bai was upset to hear that the million men he'd painstakingly trained had been reduced to trash in Yi Hao's mouth. Saint Emperor Bai felt a pang of pain at the thought of his million men. After all, they were his blood, sweat, and tears. Saint Emperor Bai lowered his head, the murderous look in his eyes obvious. But he still lifted his head and said with a smile, "Young Emperor Yanlong, please understand. That has nothing to do with me." Nothing to do with you? Yi Hao raised an eyebrow and looked at Saint Emperor Bai with interest. He'd like to see what other excuses Saint Emperor Bai could come up with. Saint Emperor Bai's eyes darted around as he tried to think of a countermeasure. Suddenly, Saint Emperor Bai's eyes lit up. He pointed at the officials and said, "It's them. They misled me and made me make the wrong decision." The officials looked at Saint Emperor Bai in shock. They couldn't believe their ears. They couldn't believe that Saint Emperor Bai would push the blame to them at such a critical moment. "Saint Emperor Bai, you're shameless. We've been loyal to you, but you've harmed us like this." One of the generals couldn't take it anymore. He pointed at Saint Emperor Bai and scolded him. "How dare you scold me?" Saint Emperor Bai's face changed when he heard the general's words. He blew his beard and glared at him. "So what if I'm scolding you? You're the emperor of a sacred dynasty, but you're kneeling on the ground like a dog. Do you have any shame? You're a disgrace to the sacred dynasty, a disgrace to all the previous emperors." Since they'd fallen out, the general didn't hold back anymore. "That's right. I don't know how our sacred dynasty ended up in the hands of a weak and incapable emperor like you. It's all our fault for being so blind. We've been loyal to you for so long." The civil and military officials spoke one after another, their faces filled with anger. You traitors!" The Bai Xing holy dynasty was infuriated when he was scolded by so many of his officials and they didn't give him any face. He felt like his lungs were about to explode. If he could, he'd kill them all. "Young Emperor Yanlong, did you see that? They don't care about me at all. They're the ones who instigated this." Saint Emperor Bai looked mad. Smack! 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 Chapter 593. Today was supposed to be a normal day, with me going to work and writing my novel. Who would have thought that today would be the saddest day in Zhu Chen's life? Zhu Chen still didn't dare believe that the father who loved me the most had passed away. Yesterday we were still chatting. Today we were separated by life and death. But I just didn't want to believe it. I really hoped that this was a nightmare, so that I could wake up from it quickly. Today was the 3rd of the month, which was supposed to be when the royalties came out. I was a bit nervous and expectant. I was nervous that it wouldn't be much, but I was looking forward to breaking through last month's royalties so that I could show off in front of my father and make him happy. Last year, Ju Chun was still immature, but today, I knew that my father was the happiest when his grandson made money and became capable. Seeing his father smile when he heard that Ju Chun could make money by writing novels was Ju Chen's greatest joy. But today, when the royalties came out at 10, they exceeded Ju Chen's expectations. I should have been happy, but I couldn't. All I could do was cry. Because I couldn't share the joy of the royalties with my father, and I couldn't see his smile. My father was genuinely happy for his grandson. I instantly felt that everything was meaningless. I never dared to think that my father would pass away so early. He should have at least waited for Ju Chun to get married and have children. But reality was just that cruel. No one could escape death. My father passed away just like that. I still remember how my father woke me up at 4:50 in the morning. He said that he was sick and couldn't breathe. I immediately called my mother over. She said that my father had a stroke and was going to prick his finger until it bled. Ju Chun checked online. This was just a rumor. It was useless. At the same time, she called an ambulance. Ju Chun thought that as long as the ambulance came, my father would be saved. But, when the doctor came, Ju Chun thought he saw hope. But after 30 minutes of resuscitation, it was still. Ju Chun dearly wished that he could turn into a pig trotter in a novel and cure my father. But reality was reality. Ju Chun couldn't do anything. Thinking back to everything that had happened, Ju Chun was filled with regret. In the past, he always thought that he would have a lot of time to spend with his father. He basically went out to play during his break, so he didn't spend much time with him. It was just a short chat after work. But no matter how much he regretted it, my father had already passed away. No matter how much Ju Chun misses his father, he won't be able to see the father who dotes on him. How many people only understood this sentence after they had lost their parents in order to provide for their children? Just as Ju Chun was about to start earning money, he was about to use the money he earned to buy good food for his father. But father, you left, father, how could you bear to leave your grandson like this? You didn't even give your grandson a chance to show filial piety to you brothers and sisters. Listen to Ju Chen's advice. Don't be willful anymore. Follow your own mood and vent your anger on your family. You must cherish your loved ones around you. Don't wait until you lose them before you regret it. Ju Chun didn't know if there was a heaven in this world. But father, your grandson misses you. If father misses your grandson too, then let's meet in your dreams and have a good chat. Father, since you like to drink, your grandson will drink with you in your dreams. Father, rest in peace. I can't bear to part with you. Chapter 594. After the Eastern Shah God gave the order, he led 1,000 martial gods and 100,000 martial saints to take a detour from the Hongda sacred dynasty toward the Fire Dragon Empire. The north, west, and south evil gods led an army of 1 billion and slowly set off toward the Bishing sacred dynasty. Yi Hao probably didn't expect us to take a detour. The Alliance Master's action will definitely ruin Yi Hao's wishful thinking. By the time Yi Hao realizes it, the Fire Dragon Empire will have already been destroyed by the Alliance Master. That's right. It's rare for the 4 evil gods to act together. Now we'll definitely attack the Fire Dragon Empire. The north, south, and south evil gods looked nostalgic. One had to know that the 4 evil spirits' subordinates handled everything. The 4 evil gods rarely acted. Because the 4 fiends' divine union was a powerful existence, there was almost no difficult problem that would require their help. In history, the only time the 4 evil gods acted together was when they devoured the demon god. Since then, the 4 evil gods had never acted together again. It could be said that the 4 evil gods hadn't acted together for 10,000 years. This time, the Fire Dragon Empire was able to force the 4 of them to act. It was obvious that the Fire Dragon Empire was a threat to them. Come, let's drink to our Alliance Master's victory. The Western Evil God took out some spiritual wine and said to the North and South Evil Gods, Your Majesty's foresight is amazing. The spies have sent news that the Eastern Evil God is leading the experts of the 4 evil spirits toward the Hongda Sacred Dynasty. Guan Yu walked into the Bishing Sacred Dynasty's main hall and said with admiration. At first, when Yi Hao told him that the 4 evil spirits might take a detour and not attack from the Bishing Sacred Dynasty, he didn't believe it. After all, the 4 evil spirits were so powerful that they could attack the Fire Dragon Empire in one go. Why would they take a detour? It was unnecessary. But he did not expect that Yi Hao's guess would actually come true. That's great. Hearing Guan Yu's words, Yi Hao immediately smiled and said, We can catch them all in one fell swoop. Could it be that His Majesty has already prepared his men? Guan Yu looked at Yi Hao in shock. Just wait for a good show. Yi Hao's lips curled into an unfathomable smile. Seeing Yi Hao's smile, Guan Yu couldn't help but shudder. He had a feeling that something big was about to happen. Alliance Master, the Hongda Sacred Dynasty is right in front of us. Should we go through or let our brothers rest for a while? Western Sha Xin looked in the direction of the Hongda Sacred Dynasty. Directly, Alliance Master, the messenger of the Hongda Dynasty is here. Just as the Eastern Sha deity was about to say that he wanted everyone to pass through the Hongda Sacred Dynasty, a martial sage came over to report. An envoy from the Hongda Sacred Dynasty? What are you doing here? Eastern Sha deity frowned and said, Could it be that they have something against me when I pass through the Hongda Sacred Dynasty? Eastern Sha deity's tone was filled with killing intent. If the Hongda Sacred Dynasty dared to offend him, he wouldn't mind killing them off. In his eyes, the Hongda Sacred Dynasty was not worth mentioning. The only problem was that it might attract the attention of the Fire Dragon Empire. However, he didn't care. If they really pissed him off, he couldn't care less. Alliance Master, the people from the Hongda Sacred Dynasty don't seem to be looking for trouble with you. Oh? Let him come over then. Eastern Sha deity's interest was piqued when he heard his subordinate's words. I am Ding Bao from the Hongda Sacred Dynasty. Greetings, Alliance Master Eastern Sha deity. When Ding Bao saw Eastern Sha deity, he immediately smiled and flattered him. Eastern Sha deity looked at Ding Bao and nodded his head slightly. I am here on behalf of His Majesty to invite the Eastern Demon Alliance leader to the Hongda Holy Dynasty to rest for a while. His Majesty has already prepared drinks for the brothers of the Eastern Demon Alliance, Ding Bao said flatteringly. Alliance Master, this. When the soldiers of the 4 evil spirits heard Ding Bao's words, they looked at Eastern Sha deity with a tempted expression. Eastern Sha deity wanted to reject, but when he saw the anticipation on his subordinates' faces, he couldn't bring himself to reject them. After all, these subordinates had been traveling day and night for more than 10 days. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please look at it tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. Just as the Eastern Shah deity was about to say that he wanted everyone to pass through the Hongda sacred dynasty, a martial sage came over to report. An envoy from the Hongda sacred dynasty? What are you doing here? Eastern Shah deity frowned and said, Could it be that they have something against me when I pass through the Hongda sacred dynasty? Eastern Shah deity's tone was filled with killing intent. If the Hongda sacred dynasty dared to offend him, he wouldn't mind killing them off. In his eyes, the Hongda sacred dynasty was not worth mentioning. The only problem was that it might attract the attention of the Fire Dragon Empire. However, he didn't care. If they really pissed him off, he couldn't care less. Alliance Master, the people from the Hongda sacred dynasty don't look like they are looking for trouble with you. Oh? Let him come over then. Eastern Shah deity's interest was piqued when he heard his subordinate's words. I am Ding Bao from the Hongda sacred dynasty. Greetings, Alliance Master Eastern Shah deity. When Ding Bao saw Eastern Shah deity, he immediately smiled and tried to flatter him. Eastern Shah deity looked at Ding Bao and nodded his head slightly. I am here on behalf of His Majesty to invite the Eastern Demon Alliance leader to the Hongda sacred dynasty to rest for a while. His Majesty has already prepared drinks for the brothers of the Eastern Demon Alliance, Ding Bao said flatteringly. Alliance Master, this. When the soldiers of the four evil spirits heard Ding Bao's words, they looked at Eastern Shah deity with a tempted expression. Eastern Shah deity wanted to reject the invitation. However, when he saw the anticipation on his subordinates' faces, he couldn't bring himself to reject them. After all, these subordinates had been traveling day and night for more than 10 days. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I rushed the whole day to send my father home. I didn't have time to write. I'm still short of 1.5 pieces. I'll rush over tonight. Brothers, please take a look tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. Chapter 596. Back then, you wiped out my Zhongxing Empire. You didn't expect this day to come, did you? It doesn't feel good, right? Thinking of the past, East Xia God had ordered the massacre of Zhongxing Empire. Zhongxing Empire was covered in smoke and blood flowed like rivers. Until now, he still couldn't forget it. It was a hatred that he could never forget. It was also a nightmare that he couldn't forget. Thinking of the tragic scene back then, he couldn't control the tears in his eyes. That was a huge blow to him. Everyone with the Zhong family bloodline was wiped out. Even those with a trace of the Zhong family bloodline were wiped out. In the end, he was the only survivor of Zhongxing Empire. But to him, being alone was worse than certain death. Because back then, as long as he closed his eyes, he could see the people of Zhongxing Empire crying for help in front of him. But in the end, they couldn't escape the fate of being slaughtered by the 4 evil spirits. Every day, he thought that he had caught the culprit so quickly. At this moment, East Xia God's life was in his hands. Leave. Suddenly, God Emperor Zhong waved his hand at East Xia God and turned around. What? You're letting me go? East Xia God was surprised to hear God Emperor Zhong's words. He had heard that God Emperor Zhong was a kind person. But he didn't expect it to be true. God Emperor Zhong is indeed, as the rumors say. You're a good person, a role model for the younger generation. East Xia God said and turned to leave. Bring me a bow and arrow, God Emperor Zhong said when he heard the commotion behind him. A guard took out a bow and arrow and handed it to God Emperor Zhong. Swoosh! God Emperor Zhong aimed at East Xia God's back and shot an arrow at his left shoulder. East Xia God couldn't take it and fell to the ground. This is because you indiscriminately attacked my Zhong holy empire, God Emperor Zhong said as he looked at East Xia God who fell to the ground. Stand up. As long as you run out of this courtyard, I'll let you go. God Emperor Zhong pointed the arrow at East Xia God's head and said with tears in his eyes. These tears represented the resentment in his heart. He was unwilling to accept the fact that Zhong Shringhua had been slaughtered by the 4 evil spirits for no reason, and he was powerless to do anything about it. He hated the Eastern Fiend God. He hated all the 4 evil spirits who had their hands stained with the blood of the Holy Empire. The Eastern Fiend God could feel the intense pain coming from his left button, almost causing him to faint. Feeling the blood flowing down his back and chest, the East Fiend God turned to look at Emperor Zhong. He saw that Emperor Zhong's bow was aimed at his head. The East Sha deity looked at himself and realized that he was still a few hundred meters away from escaping. He didn't want to die yet. Eastern Fiend God gritted his teeth and stood up shakily, running forward. This arrow is for the citizens of Zhong Xing Nation who died for no reason. Swish. As soon as God Emperor Zhong finished speaking, the arrow in his hand left the bow and shot toward the East Sha deity's right shoulder. Hearing the sound of something tearing through the air behind him, the East Fiend God had an anxious look on his face. However, he also knew that he would not be able to dodge the attacks of a martial god realm expert without any cultivation. He tried his best to widen his strides so that he could run a few more steps. Pfff. The arrow suddenly shot into his right shoulder. Struck by the huge impact, the East Fiend God couldn't control himself and fell to the ground again. The East Fiend God felt his mind go blank in an instant. He wanted to sleep for a while more, but God Emperor Zhong's words rang in his ears again. Get up! The East Fiend God had no choice but to get up. However, his shoulders were no longer able to support him. After spending a long time, he finally managed to stand up shakily. He looked at the exit in front of him. As long as he could escape there, he would be saved. I want to live. Ignoring the intense pain in his body, the East Fiend God could only take a few more steps with difficulty. He only wanted to take a few more steps before God Emperor Zhong shot the next arrow. This was because the more steps he took, the more hope he would have to survive. He had never thought that he, the East Fiend God of the 4 evil spirits, would one day be reduced to such a state. This was definitely something that he had never dreamed of. After all, given his status, only he had the right to control the life and death of others in the 10,000 Lands continent. It wasn't that there weren't any people who could control his life and death, but they were definitely few and far between. He had never thought that he would stumble and suffer such a huge loss here. He didn't doubt that God Emperor Zhong would kill him. This was because the killing intent in God Emperor Zhong's eyes couldn't be faked. After all, this was the enmity of annihilating a country and severing a person's bloodline. This was absolutely irreconcilable. Although his chances of survival were slim, he only wished to live. Even if there was only a sliver of hope, he didn't want to let it go. This was like a billionaire in front of a terminal illness. Even if he knew that his chances of survival weren't high, he still wouldn't let go of a chance. How rare was it for the East Fiend God to reach such a position? How could he bear to die? After all, his authority was definitely in the top 10 in the 10,000 Lands continent. If he died, there would be nothing left. This arrow is for you to slaughter my bloodline clansmen. Swish. God Emperor Zhong had just finished speaking when another arrow shot into the East Fiend God's left leg. This arrow is for you to destroy my Zhong family's emperor's legacy. Swish. After God Emperor Zhong finished speaking, another arrow shot into the East Fiend God's right leg. The East Fiend God fell to the ground. But this time, he couldn't stand up. The East Fiend God panted heavily and could only move his body with difficulty. Now that the East Fiend God's arms and legs were crippled, he was clearly a cripple. But even if he was a cripple, the East Fiend God still wanted to live. God Emperor Zhong looked coldly at the East Fiend God, who was crawling with difficulty, leaving a bloody path that was more than 10 meters long. God Emperor Zhong looked at the East Fiend God quietly. Looking at the miserable state of the East Fiend God, God Emperor Zhong didn't feel much emotion. Similarly, he didn't feel the joy of revenge. because even if he killed the East Fiend God, he wouldn't be able to save everyone in Zhong Saint Empire. But even so, it didn't mean that God Emperor Zhong would let the East Fiend God off. Looking at the East Fiend God crawling towards the exit, God Emperor Zhong wasn't in a hurry to shoot. He was waiting. He wanted to give the East Fiend God a sliver of hope to live. Then, when the East Fiend God saw hope, he would kill him. Because this was the cruelest way to kill. But at the same time, it could also resolve the hatred in his heart. 10 meters. 9 meters. 8 meters. 3 meters. 2 meters. Go to hell. I did it, swish. Just as the East Fiend God crawled to the edge of the exit, his face revealed the joy of being able to live. At this moment, a deafening sound pierced through the air. The East Fiend God's face changed drastically. The joy on his face disappeared, leaving behind only panic and anxiety. Chapter 597. Poof. Rumble. 2 consecutive sounds rang out. One was the sound of an arrow piercing into the body of the East Sha God. The other was the sound of an arrow piercing through the body of the East Sha God and into the ground. Cough, cough, cough. Suddenly, the East Sha God started coughing violently. The East Sha God still wanted to crawl forward, but his body was nailed to the ground. No matter how hard he struggled, it was useless. He couldn't move his body at all. Furthermore, the more he struggled, the more the arrow pierced through his wounds. The pain was so excruciating that he almost fainted. Tap, tap, tap. Hearing the footsteps, the East Sha God turned his head weakly. Looking at the murderous Emperor Zhong, he begged, "Please let me go. I don't want to die." "You don't want to die, but do the people of Zhong Xing Empire want to die? Did you think about their pleas?" Emperor Zhong shouted coldly at the East Sha God. The East Sha God's face changed. He continued, "How about this? I'll give you half of the forces of the 4 evil spirit. What do you think?" In order to survive, the East Sha God was willing to go all out. Furthermore, as long as he could leave this place alive, the wounds on his body could be healed instantly. After that, he would have to torture Emperor Zhong and Yi Hao to death. Because based on Emperor Zhong's words, he could deduce that Yi Hao was definitely involved in this matter. However, Emperor Zhong wouldn't give him a chance. The arrow in his hand was pointed at the East Sha God's head. Die. As soon as Emperor Zhong finished speaking, the arrow pierced through the East Sha God's head. However, no one had expected that the renowned East Demon deity would die just like that without a sound. Furthermore, the encounter before his death was so tragic. "People of Zhong Xing Empire, I've taken revenge for you." Emperor Zhong looked at the dead East Sha God. The bow in his hand fell to the ground. Emperor Zhong knelt on the ground and roared into the sky. However, Emperor Zhong still took out a voice transmission talisman and sent a message to Yi Hao. As for how Emperor Zhong got to know Yi Hao, it was just a coincidence. Back then, Emperor Zhong had entered an adversity in order to escape. In the secret grounds, Emperor God Zhong did not obtain anything else, but he did obtain some strange poisons. This time around, the reason why the Eastern Sha deity was unable to use his martial power was because of the medicine he had obtained from the mystic realm. After leaving the secret realm, he looked for opportunities to think of a way to take revenge on the 4 evil spirits. What he didn't expect was that the 4 evil spirits were attacking the Fire Dragon Empire, so he immediately rushed to the Fire Dragon Empire. It was also because of this that he coincidentally met Yi Hao. Originally, he had begged Yi Hao to let him stay and fight against the Eastern Sha deity together. However, Yi Hao had told him that the East Sha deity might attack the Fire Dragon Empire from the Hongda Sacred Dynasty. At first, he didn't believe it, but it really happened. Yi Hao first sent people to take over Hongda Xing Dynasty, then used the Thousand Illusion Mask to transform into Hongda Xing Emperor, and took the opportunity to drug the food. All of this was done naturally, without the slightest flaw. Until now, he still felt like a lifetime had passed. He had actually killed the Eastern Shah deity with his own hand. Your Majesty, you have helped me take revenge. From now on, I will follow you to death. Emperor Godzong immediately swore as Yi Hao appeared in his mind. Seeing the news from Emperor Godzong, Yi Hao didn't expect things to go so smoothly, so he immediately shouted, "Good!" After all, the biggest threat of the Four Fiends' divine union had already been eliminated by him. Therefore, the remaining members of the Four Fiends' divine union weren't worth mentioning. Your Majesty, why are you so happy? Guan Yu looked at Yi Hao and asked curiously. Actually, he had been anxious to death these few days. Because he knew that the four evil spirits, the Eastern Shah deity, had brought experts from the Hongda sacred dynasty to attack Yen Long. Logically speaking, it should have been about time. However, after waiting for a long time, Yi Hao still hadn't made a move. He was really afraid that he would suddenly receive news that the Fire Dragon Empire had been destroyed. Although the 1 billion soldiers in front of him were powerful, they were not worth mentioning when compared to the experts of the four evil spirits. He didn't understand why Yi Hao was still wasting time here at a time like this. Could it be that Yi Hao didn't care about the Fire Dragon Empire and insisted on fighting the 1 billion soldiers? However, even if he killed the 1 billion soldiers, if the Eastern Shah deity brought his men to destroy the Fire Dragon Empire, then everything would be in vain. Good news. The Eastern Shah deity, his 100,000 martial sages and 1,000 martial gods have all been destroyed. Yi Hao said happily. Seeing Yi Hao's smiling face, Guan Yu was obviously stunned. He was still worried and asked tentatively, Your Majesty, are you saying that the Eastern Shah deity has been destroyed? That's right. Seeing how certain Yi Hao was, Guan Yu was even more stunned. 100,000 martial sages and 1,000 martial gods were definitely not a small number. No matter who they were fighting, it would definitely be a big battle. However, they had all been destroyed without a sound. How could anyone believe it? After all, this wasn't something that could be laughed about. Pass down my orders. The remnants of the four evil spirits. Yi Hao gathered his soldiers and ordered. What did you say? The Fire Dragon Empire actually attacked me. The Western Shah deity, who was chatting with the Northern and Southern Shah deity, was shocked when he heard the news. At this time, shouldn't Yi Hao continue to lie in ambush in the Bishing sacred dynasty and wait for him to come? Could it be that he was too slow in advancing? The Western Shah deity analyzed for a long time and could only come up with this reason. However, he didn't care. Since the Fire Dragon Empire is so anxious to die, I can't not help. It's a good chance to attract Yi Hao's attention and allow the Alliance Master to attack from Hongda Sacred City. Haha, based on the Alliance Master's speed, he should be arriving at the Fire Dragon Empire soon. Yi Hao probably doesn't know yet, said the Southern Shah deity proudly. Yi Hao is really arrogant. He actually dares to take the initiative to attack. He really doesn't put us in his eyes. However, he'll regret it soon, said the Northern Shah deity proudly. Not good, 3 Shah deities. At this moment, one of the commanders suddenly shouted. Why are you in such a hurry? What are you doing? The 3 Shah deities were displeased when they saw the commander's appearance. 3 Shah deities, this lowly one knows his mistake. However, this lowly one really has an urgent matter, said the commander respectfully after straightening his clothes. Sirs, our left wing has encountered 5,000 martial god ancient beasts and 20,000 martial sacred realm experts. What? The 3 Shah deities stood up and asked in unison, why didn't you report such a big matter earlier? The commander felt bitter when he heard the 3 Shah deities' words. Chapter 598. Hurry up and contact the Alliance leader. Let's see how he is doing. Western Devil God said anxiously. With the sudden appearance of so many experts, the remaining 1 billion soldiers of the 4 evil spirits would not be able to deal with them. Over 100,000 peak martial sages could kill 1 billion soldiers like a child's play. Western Devil God, I can't contact the Alliance leader. Northern Devil God took out his voice transmission talisman and said anxiously after a while. Same here. Southern Devil God took out his voice transmission talisman when he heard Northern Devil God. However, after a while, he also said anxiously, "Let's order the soldiers to retreat first." Western Devil God said anxiously when he saw that he could not contact Eastern Devil God. With every delay, the soldiers of the 4 evil spirits would be killed or injured. However, when the Southern, Western, and Northern Devil Gods went out to take a look, they were dumbfounded. The flames of war were everywhere and they could not tell who was on their side. How could they retreat? Eastern Devil God is dead. The 4 evil spirits must be defeated. Eastern Devil God is dead. The 4 evil spirits must be defeated. Eastern Devil God is dead. The 4 evil spirits must be defeated. Ah! The Alliance leader is dead. What should we do? Is this real? Where is the Alliance leader? Why hasn't he come out to retreat? Where are the experts of the 4 evil spirits? Why haven't they come out to save us? Hearing the shouts of the experts of the Fire Dragon Empire, the soldiers of the 4 evil spirits started to panic. Who dares to spout nonsense? I will kill him! Western Devil God shouted coldly. However, his shouts alone were not enough to control the situation. Could something have happened to the Alliance leader? Western Devil God thought guiltily when he heard the words of the experts of the Fire Dragon Empire. Logically speaking, Eastern Devil God should have responded quickly when he contacted him with his voice transmission talisman. However, the Southern, Western, and Northern Devil Gods had already contacted Eastern Devil God with their voice transmission talismans, but there was still no response. Furthermore, they had not only contacted Eastern Devil God, but also his trusted subordinates, Black Devil God and the others. However, there was no response. You are courting death. Looking at the ancient mutated beast charging towards him, Western Demon God took out his weapon and attacked the ancient mutated beast. Boom! The Western Demon God took the opportunity and smashed his weapon into the head of the ancient beast. The head of the ancient mutated beast exploded, and its entire corpse fell onto the ground. As for the Southern Fiend Deity and the Northern Fiend Deity, they had each killed a primordial beast. Swish! Swish! Right at this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Western Demon God instantly felt his hair stand on end. Just by feeling, he knew that the person behind him was definitely an expert. Western Demon God desperately tried to flee to the side. However, the ones who had attacked were martial god level archers. Furthermore, it was 4 martial god level archers. The 4 archers locked onto Western Demon God's body. If he was hit by the 4 of them, he would definitely die on the spot. Western Fiend. The Southern Demon Deity and the Northern Demon Deity shouted, but it was too late. Boom! The Western Demon God was struck by the arrow and fell to the ground. Although Western Demon God dodged 2 of the 4 arrows, 2 of them still managed to hit him. Run! Seeing that the Western Demon Deity had fallen, the Southern Demon Deity and the Northern Demon Deity did not hesitate and immediately fled. However, no matter how fast they reacted, the 4 martial god level archers had already drawn their bows and shot at the 2 of them. Giddy up! Giddy up! Giddy up! Giddy up! Right at this moment, another 4 cavalrymen of the martial god level appeared. Their divine chariots soared into the sky and charged at the Southern Demon Deity and the Northern Demon Deity. Seeing the sudden appearance of the cavalrymen of the martial god level, the Southern Demon Deity and the Northern Demon Deity immediately changed their direction. However, at this moment, another 2 soldiers of the martial god level appeared beside them. Kill! Kill! The 2 soldiers shouted in unison and charged at the Southern Demon Deity and the Northern Demon Deity at the same time. The southern demon deity and the northern demon deity's faces instantly darkened. Being surrounded by so many experts, even if they had 3 heads and 6 arms, they would not be able to escape this calamity. Fight! The southern demon deity made up his mind and stopped running. The northern demon deity ignored the southern demon deity and turned to flee. Ha! Just as the northern demon deity thought that he had escaped and turned back to look, a shout suddenly came from in front of him. The northern demon deity's heart tightened and he immediately came back to his senses. However, he suddenly felt a pain in his chest. The northern demon deity raised his head and saw a silver spear piercing through his chest. The northern demon deity looked at the spearman in front of him unwillingly. However, it was too late. The southern demon deity was in an even worse state. He was surrounded by 4 cavalrymen of the martial god level and was trampled into shreds by the divine chariots of the cavalrymen. The 4 demons of the 4 evil spirits had all fallen at this moment. The battle that followed was a one-sided massacre. After all, the Fire Dragon Empire also had a large number of soldiers, although they were not as strong as the 4 evil spirits. However, with the suppression of the Fire Dragon Empire's experts, even if the 4 evil spirits were stronger than the Fire Dragon Empire's soldiers, they still could not gain the upper hand. In the end, 80% of the 4 evil spirits' soldiers were killed. The remaining 20% were all killed. Yi Hao did not relax after killing the soldiers of the 4 fiends' divine union. Although the 4 fiends had been killed, Yi Hao did not let his guard down. Although the 4 evil spirits were killed, there were still many survivors in the territory of the 4 evil spirit. According to Yi Hao's character, since he took action, he would clean it up once and for all. He would not leave any survivors. Yi Hao led half of Yan Cheng's experts and rushed to the 4 evil spirit. In one night, the 4 evil spirits were massacred. In just a month, Yi Hao destroyed the Hongda Sacred Dynasty, Bishing Sacred Dynasty, and the 4 evil spirit. It was only when the 4 evil spirits were destroyed that the entire Myriad Kingdom continent reacted and fell into a state of shock. They thought that under the attack of the 4 evil spirits, the Fire Dragon Empire would definitely not be able to escape. They did not expect the Fire Dragon Empire to be so strong that it was the 4 evil spirits that were destroyed in the end. In the Myriad Kingdom continent, there was absolutely no one who did not know of the 4 fiends' divine alliance. Because the 4 evil spirits were the first sacred dynasty, the strongest faction under the divine rank faction. Moreover, the 4 evil spirits were the most promising sacred dynasty to become a divine rank faction. In the Myriad Kingdom continent, only the 4 divine kingdoms could deal with the 4 evil spirit. Even the 4 divine kingdoms would not be able to deal with the 4 evil spirits so easily. However, the 4 evil spirits that everyone had the impression of being very strong were easily destroyed by the Fire Dragon Empire. They were shocked and guessing what kind of background the Fire Dragon Empire had and how strong it was. It only took him a month to destroy the 4 fiends' divine alliance. Moreover, it was not only the 4 evil spirits that were destroyed, but also the Hongda Sacred Dynasty and the Bishing Sacred Dynasty. Since the Fire Dragon Empire had destroyed the 4 evil spirits, it had truly become the first sacred dynasty under the divine rank faction. Moreover, the name of the first sacred dynasty was definitely worthy of its name. Not only was the Fire Dragon Empire's dragon power the strongest, it had also destroyed the 4 evil spirits. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.